That night outside the ancient castle of the Min family, a sudden storm rose up, howling fiercely as if it wanted to tear apart the night. Hidden deep within the magnificent structure was a secret passage, always glowing with light. It led to a secluded room, a true hell on earth. From there, the sound of agonizing cries echoed, tearing at the hearts of those who heard it. Inside the room, thick with the stench of blood, a young man was imprisoned. His body was covered in wounds, the corners of his mouth bleeding so battered it was hard to recognize him as Ryan, the young master of this prestigious family. Beside him, a glowing charcoal fire was heating 2 iron rods, radiating intense heat. The torturer named Sans tightly grabbed Ryan's hair, yanking his head back and hissed, "You're locked up here by S." He smirked, his eyes gleaming with malice and madness, continuing, "You really are quite interesting. The direct descendant of the family, you were born with every kind of talent." After Ryan clenched his teeth in silence, refusing to respond, Sans grew even more excited. He mocked him loudly, his tone dripping with sarcasm about the so-called blessing of the family. Without hesitation, Sans pressed the glowing iron rod hard against Ryan's skin. The sizzling sound of burning flesh rang out along with Ryan's agonizing screams, fresh blood spewing from his mouth. It stained the cold stone floor red. Watching his victim writhe in pain, Sans showed extreme delight, tilting his head and cruelly remarking, "And you're cursed with having no talent at all. Yet your life clings on like a leech." The pain exceeded his limits, causing Ryan's will to crumble. He weakly tried to plead for a release. Sans raised an eyebrow, letting out a sound of confusion as Ryan looked up with his cloudy eyes, hesitating to speak. "Just kill me." Hearing the plea for death, Sans threw his head back and laughed loudly, filled with arrogance. He replied with disdain, "I don't understand what you're saying. I should have cut out your tongue instead." Sans turned away. He walked off joking, as if this were merely a game. "I thought I could get something from the bloodline of the Min family, but I'm starting to get bored." Before the prison door closed, he turned his head, emphasizing each word with hidden meaning. "Just don't die today. Because of the curse, we don't exist for ourselves." The door slammed shut, leaving Ryan in darkness and despair. He had said that the Min family had been wiped out, and today marked the 3-year anniversary of their demise. Hearing those words, Ryan bowed his head to the ground in despair, pounding his fists against the cold stone floor. The cold wind from the window crept in, carrying the breath of loneliness. Ryan sat there, drowning in utter sorrow, the image of Sansa's arrogant face, flashing in his mind, bitterly murmuring, 3 years have passed, and yet... The Min family had once been a stronghold, standing on the front lines to protect the continent from the monstrous beasts of the Darklands. Among the 5 great families, the Min family was the greatest and most powerful, but cruel fate had struck. When his father and brothers suddenly disappeared, the family quickly fell into decline, and the phantom vultures wasted no time in tearing them apart, trampling on the Min family. What they craved was the blessing of the bloodline, the legacy of the clan. A direct descendant with that blood could become a grand sorcerer by the age of 10 and reach the peak of swordsmanship by 15. But Ryan was not one of them. He was cursed by the demon king Aken, a calamity that appeared once every few centuries. Because of it, he became a cripple, unable to practice swordsmanship or magic. Without that curse, if he had power, the family wouldn't have been trampled by the phantom, and he wouldn't have to endure the barbaric experiments of that Sans. No. Now even regret drained him of strength. Ryan felt death approaching. Today would be the day he was freed. Thinking of that, he closed his eyes, letting the tears flow freely. Yet memories played back like a slow-motion film. The first time he faced a monster, his blood-soaked body stood proudly over the corpses of his enemies. His youthful face was calm in a strange way. Then the scene of him fighting a large tiger alone, confidence radiating from his features. Despite his young age, even when Sansa's army stormed in, witnessing the slaughter of his family, Ryan bravely took up his sword to join the fight. But the harsh reality crushed that resistance. Sans, with a haughty expression, used magic to create a black hole that swallowed everything. When he knocked Ryan down, he leaned down and said, "I will grant you a wish." But in that final moment, when Ryan reached out to grab him, Sans soared high into the air. Suddenly, Ryan opened his eyes, hearing the urgent calls in his ears, "Young master, young master, young master." His vision was still blurry, and he vaguely recognized the person in front of him was Lin, who was anxiously calling for him. "Young master, come here." Huyen had completely regained consciousness. Colin Ryan sprang up, trying to gather his thoughts, his voice still tinged with confusion. Colin, the wet nurse, immediately scolded him loudly, but her tone was filled with concern. "Your health has always been weak, and you're working too hard. What should we do?" Ryan stared at Colin while she looked at him with a puzzled expression. This was indeed Colin, the wet nurse of the Shikman family. But why was she here? Where was she? And why did she look so much younger than in his memories? A shiver ran down his spine. He immediately ordered, "Colin, bring me a mirror." "Yes." Despite being surprised by the sudden request, she complied. "Why do you want a mirror?" When the mirror was brought to him, Ryan was stunned. Reflected in the mirror was not a crippled prisoner, but a young boy. He turned to ask Lin, "What day is it today?" She froze, panic-stricken, touching his forehead. "Oh my God. Young master, what happened to you?" "Today is the 17th of the year, 1892. At that moment, Ryan was calculating in his mind, filled with astonishment. 1892. This is clearly when I was just 12 years old, before the Min family fell into the tragedy of annihilation. by the phantom. The words of Sans from years ago echoed in his ears. I will grant you a wish. Ryan wondered to himself, his heart pounding. Back to that moment then. What? Min fell into a tragic demise as Phantom's words from years ago echoed in my ears. I shall grant you a wish. Ryan questioned himself, heart pounding as he turned back to that moment. Your train of thought was interrupted when the door swung open, revealing a middle-aged man with a commanding presence, Alejandro, the captain of the Sikmin Knights. He looked at Rian and thought to himself, I thought the young master was just faking illness to avoid getting up. He squinted, observing Rian's face, then said, It seems you're really not feeling well, so can you skip training today? Hearing this, Miss Lin immediately snapped, I already told you. Before she could finish, Ryan interjected firmly, No. Ms. Lin felt embarrassed and stole a glance at him, while Alejandro stared intently at his young master without blinking. Rian stepped down from the bed and declared boldly, I'm fine. This unusual attitude raised Alejandro's suspicions. The usually lazy young master was refusing a break. He replied straightforwardly, Today is swordsmanship training. With a curious expression, he asked a loaded question. But are you really the young master? Ryan walked over to the weapon rack, picked up a wooden sword, and replied decisively, Yes, I am Ryan Smith, no mistake about it. Meanwhile, while Alejandro was still in shock, Rian's heart was boiling with the desire to turn back time. Who cares? He ordered coldly. Forget the training. Let's go hunt some monsters. For Ryan, this wasn't just practice. It was a chance to change his cruel fate, an opportunity to correct all the mistakes of the past. At 4 a.m. that morning at the training grounds of the Segmin Castle, a light blue status board appeared before Rian. Rian, Segmin, Level 1, Strength, 7 Agility, 5 Stamina, 3 Mana 0, Curse Icon, SS4. The words Curse of the Demon King Aiken caught his eye. Because of it, he couldn't accumulate mana and would be paralyzed when facing monsters. Ryan looked at the status board and thought to himself, even though I've returned to the past, I can still use this. Fortunately, this was a unique ability that no one on the Dore continent possessed at this time. Hearing Alejandro's call, he quickly turned off the system board. Young master, the monster is ready. Both moved to the center of the training ground, where a goblin was tightly bound its mouth, screaming frantically. It struggled even more violently when it saw Ryan pointing the wooden sword at it, the iron chains clanking loudly. Today, Alejandro stood with his arms crossed, observing calmly, in stark contrast to Ms. Lin, who was sweating bullets in fear. She earnestly pleaded with the knight captain, Please stop it. Seeing him silent, she continued to plead, You know it too. The knight captain, the young master, only needs to face it a little bit, and he'll faint. But in reality, he heard every word. He silently admitted that she was right. That was him yesterday. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath to calm himself. When he opened his eyes, his gaze had turned sharp, but now he knew clearly a bright red warning flashed up indicating that the Archon curse was activating, amplifying the fear of monsters. Rian gritted his teeth, feeling the fear of the monster. It turned out this was also part of the Archon curse. Seeing Rian standing still, Alejandro sighed in disappointment, intending to end today's training. That's enough for now. But Ryan immediately protested. No, this isn't enough. Just as he finished speaking, he charged straight at the goblin. The goblin, seeing the enemy approaching, bared its fangs and claws ready to attack. Its fierce face made Ryan hesitate for a moment. Primitive fear surged up, but he quickly halted, reassuring himself. Calm down. I'm no longer the Ryan of the past. My opponent is just a goblin. I can do this compared to the threat from that Sans. This goblin was nothing in Rian's eyes. At that moment, the image of the goblin overlapped with Sans' face, and the pent-up hatred over the years erupted, sweeping away all fear. He shouted in his mind, as if at that very moment. The person before him was not a goblin, but him, Sans. Rian raised the wooden sword high, and in the next moment he struck straight down onto the goblin's head with all his might. The blow was so strong that Alejandro widened his eyes in shock. Meanwhile, Colin's face turned pale. You have overcome the curse icon thanks to experience exceeding the level limit. The curse icon has decreased. You no longer feel fear of monsters. The goblin hit on the head shrank back in a corner. Trembling with fear, Ryan looked at it with fiery eyes, then turned to command the knight captain. Give me the real sword. His words made Colin's spirit nearly leave her body. Alejandro drew the sword from his side and handed it to him. But he still didn't forget to ask, Are you really okay? Rian beamed brightly in response. Alejandro looked at him, murmuring in admiration. The young master has finally become a man today. Holding the real sword in hand, Rian's killing intent radiated, causing the goblin to grind its teeth in threat, but it was useless. This time, without a hint of hesitation, Ryan swung the sword in a decisive arc, finishing off the target. Fresh blood splattered, staining the ground red. Alejandro felt a secret joy in his heart. Sigmund clan, which had been teetering, finally saw the light. He turned to Ms. Lin, filled with pride, saying, Look closely, Ms. Lin. That figure truly is, the next heir of the Sigmin clan. Back in his room, Rian splashed cold water on his face to wash away the blood, looking at his reflection in the mirror. He silently assessed that the status window and system support were all functioning very well. I have overcome the Archon curse and proven that I can grow. He opened the status board again, and the experience line had increased. However, Ryan was still not satisfied. It was too little. If he wanted to level up by hunting goblins, he would have to kill thousands, tens of thousands, which would take time. He couldn't wait for anyone. The sound of sorrowful steel enveloped the Sickman clan, drawing closer. He needed a faster method. Rian remembered the only person who could help him at this moment. Not long after Senna, the head of the mage guild of her family entered the room. As soon as she arrived, she spoke with a hint of reproach. I've heard about the young master hunting for Lin. But still, the reason you called me here is to learn magic, right? Senna, one of the very few disappointed archmages of the continent with a mysterious background. Second only to your father in strength, noticed your silence and continued to scold. You've only just killed one Lin, and you're already so full of yourself. Training in magic is completely different from swordsmanship. From the start, the young master lacked talent, which is why he wasn't trained. Have you forgotten? Rin looked straight into her eyes, silently responding, Of course I remember. Thanks to the Aiken curse, all my talents were taken away. I can't sense magical power, but that was yesterday. You've decided to lay your cards on the table. What if I said, I can sense magical power? Senna looked at the incompetent young master in disbelief as she dipped her finger into the teacup. Using the water, she drew a magical circle in the air, and in an instant, the image of a brilliant red dragon appeared invisible to ordinary people. Now you can open your eyes. I've drawn a picture that can only be seen with magical power right in front of you, young master. When Ryan opened his eyes, Senna pressed on. If what you said is true, tell me what I drew. Without hesitation, Rin replied, a beautiful red dragon. Senna was stunned and asked again, Did I guess wrong? She was flustered, her pride shaken. No, I didn't. At this point, she had to admit that he had indeed changed since yesterday. But how I even set up a mechanism to change its form? If you don't understand magical power at my level... Joy surged in her heart for the family. How did you overcome the family curse? Even though I taught you how to sense magical power? Rin interrupted her. His tone, earnest. I can sense magical power, but I can't use the family's magical training method, so I need your help. Senna was surprised, but she understood the issue. Magical power needed a vessel, a mana heart. Without the family's secret method, the only other way was dark and dangerous. She sighed seriously, warning, So you've tried it already. But do you know what your words just meant? My helping you train your magical power means I have to tear open your body to channel the magical power, in putting both your life and mine at risk. Ryan paused for a moment, then casually asked, Are you planning to kill me? The naive question angered Senna. The young master Ryan interrupted her, speaking nonchalantly. Anyway, my body right now can't resist you. Remember in my past life when our family was ambushed? Senna was the one who fought until her last breath. When her magical power was exhausted and her body was nearly collapsing, she still protected me until the end with absolute faith. Senna, I trust you more than anyone. Senna sighed in resignation at this determination. Then let's begin. She observed his frail body, silently wondering how he could use the Earthlamb training method, which was only passed down to direct descendants. You've only heard the theory, young master. Can you really use it to channel magical power? Yes. Ryan was also highly focused. You will use the Earthlamb method from the Adrian game to forcibly level up. Please concentrate, Senna reminded him. Ah, yes, Ryan replied, startled. It will hurt a lot. You must not make a sound or struggle. If it becomes unbearable, you have to seriously consider stopping. Hurt, really. Ryan chuckled bitterly inside. Compared to the tortures in Sansa's dungeon, this is nothing. The images of enemies and humiliation made him grit his teeth. His anger overshadowed his fear as he shouted, I said I trust you. Senna softly replied, I understand. The process began. A massive surge of magical power from Senna's hand surged straight into Rin's body, tearing through blood vessels, to open a painful path as if he were being flayed alive. The Aiken curse system is activating. The magical power in his body dispersed. Senna was astonished to see her magical power being repelled by the Aiken curse, just as the family head had said. But I will inject more magical power than that. The Aiken curse system is activating. The Aiken curse system is activating. Notifications flooded in, only visible to Ryan. He noticed two streams of power turning his body into a battlefield. Rin realized that Senna's magical power couldn't overcome this high-level curse, but he had a plan. Once the magical power was dissipated, I just need to lock down the entire area inside my body. Then I can deceive the curse. The magical power will still be within me, Senna panicked. Young master, you've discovered something unusual. The magical power is dissipating but not escaping your body. The resistance system against the Aiken curse is activating. The Aiken curse is activating. Resistance successful. His body felt like it was on fire, the flow of magical power inside him burning painfully as if it were ablaze. But can I lose? I've experienced this kind of pain thousands of times. With the experience of a master player, he controlled the chaotic flow of magical power, forcing it to obey the Aiken. Though he had never seen the Demon King the Aiken curse of someone who wasn't even a god from Adrian, Ryan's painful scream echoed throughout the room as the magic fully integrated with him, causing him to collapse unconscious. Senna's voice called out desperately in a daze, memories of his past life resurfacing, with the cold voice of Sans ringing in his ears. Capturing a kid like me to use as a test subject was definitely a mistake. It's probably time to throw it away. Then the scene of Alejandro bursting into the dungeon to save him, using his own body to shield him from the blow, and dying in his arms blended with Ryan's desperate cries from the past and the tears of the present. as he opened his eyes to find himself lying in bed. The warm sunlight streamed in, and he wiped away his tears, reassuring himself that the alchemy had succeeded. Even though it was a success, the painful memories prevented him from feeling joy. But now he had the power to change it. Ryan sat up, ruffling his hair and looking at Senna and Alejandro, who were waiting by his bedside. He decided to lie to protect his secret. The magic training failed, Ryan said, and Senna turned sharply disbelief in her eyes. Alejandro echoed her sentiment, and the room fell silent. Ryan felt guilty, but he couldn't reveal his power at that moment, especially not in front of the Phantom family, who had too many expectations of him. He had tried hard, but now he couldn't sense any magic at all. Ryan let out a smooth lie, but Senna wouldn't accept it. She stepped forward. "I can check," Senna said, extending her hand. "Please let me." She chanted a mana spell, and a stream of light appeared, but she felt nothing at all. She exclaimed, "No way." But Ryan just smiled. Senna let go, asserting loudly that it had truly disappeared. "Yesterday the mana was clearly there," she exclaimed in shock, mumbling, "Please," before running out. Alejandro looked on in confusion, then turned to comfort his master, saying, "But don't be too disappointed, master. After all you did, hunt a monster." "If I focus on swordsmanship," Ryan quickly cut him off, continuing to play the role of the weakling. "Actually, I can't do it a second time. After that, even eating became difficult. You must have heard Colin mention it, right?" At the mention of Colin, Alejandro's face darkened, cold sweat breaking out. Time flew by and 2 months passed. The Min castle was covered in white snow. Lin walked to the private room as usual, filled with worry upon seeing her master shut away in his room. The family was in turmoil, with only the lady of the house bearing the burden, and it seemed she was nearing her limit. Just then, Diem approached her, tone laced with scrutiny. "Is your master not coming out of his room today?" She maintained a calm expression, responding tersely, "Yes." Diem smirked, raising her voice deliberately so everyone around could hear her unpleasant words. "It's been 3 months since the incident of defeating the monster at the training ground." But that young master returned in a useless guise, ignoring the captain's words. Alina, standing beside her, chimed in, "They say those who suddenly change their temperament are a sign of death." Ultimately, the brilliance of that day was just a fleeting dream. Hearing those sharp words, Lin shouted angrily, "That's not true. That day, the master just wanted to meet everyone's expectations." Diem immediately brought up the ominous signs of the family's doom to refute her, her tone filled with pessimism. Not only within the family, but rumors about the prodigal son of the Min family had spread throughout the kingdom. Lin felt indignant on behalf of her master. Was it too cruel to a boy who was only 12 years old? Diem replied resolutely, her cold gaze fixed. "The more expectations there are, the more disappointment there will be, especially for a noble family that is declining." Alina nodded in agreement, siding with Diem, the situation becoming dire, to the point where servants were resigning one after another. Seizing the opportunity, Diem bluntly stated her intention. "I will also resign after this month." She turned to ask Lin, "And you?" She bowed her head in silence, but in her heart she silently called out the name of the one she vowed to be loyal to her master. Meanwhile, in his private room, Ryan was having a meal. He tasted the food and immediately spat it out, a self-deprecating smile forming on his lips. The quality of the food had dropped drastically, indicating that the family's finances were running dry, just as the script had predicted. If it were the naive Ryan of the past, he would have surely poured all his remaining assets to salvage the situation in vain. But now, with the experience of a seasoned player like Adrian, he was entirely different. He chose to wait silently, lulling the enemy into complacency, so that the day of the knife at their throats and the gutting of their bellies would not be far off. The decline began when the head of the family went missing. His brothers and elite mages set out to search for him, never to return. Now the Min family lacked both manpower and financial resources to continue that futile search. The training ground, once filled with cheers, now only had a few weeknights and a lackluster group of servants. The family members who once wanted to be close to the heir turned their backs and walked away upon seeing this chaos. Once glancing back, Ryan thought to himself, "With so much going on, I still have the leisure to pretend to be lazy in my room at night." However, the speed of decline was slower than he had calculated. Indeed, a thin camel is still larger than a rich horse. Even if it collapses, it must go through 3 generations. Ryan told himself that from tomorrow, he must speed up the progress. Just as he lay on the bed contemplating his next move, Colin rushed in, interrupting his thoughts. "Master, it's time for training. The captain is waiting for you. Let's go." He frowned, turning his face away, pulling the blanket tightly around him, and replied lazily, "I'm taking a break today." However, this attitude angered Colin, who wasted no time in lunging forward to snatch the blanket away, revealing his strong hands. His grandmother was approaching him, and Ryan was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. Before he could react, she lifted him up like a child. He called out her name in panic, "Colin," as his body felt much heavier than before. Thanks to the training, Colin had to grit his teeth and exert himself just to hold him up. Even so, her gaze was unusually determined. "I absolutely will not leave the Sickman house," she said, and with that, Colin carried him straight away. Lying on the shoulder of the wet nurse, Ryan couldn't help but laugh inside. After a while, at the training ground, he saw Colin holding the sword in a ridiculously wrong posture. Alejandro shouted angrily, "How many times have I told you not to hold the sword like that?" Even though he failed, once you feel the magic, once it's easy to sense it again. The swordsmanship, he learned, only required swinging the sword for the magic to flow in. He knew the captain was extremely disappointed, and Ryan could only bite his lip and silently reassure himself. On this side, he hadn't given up either. That night when he returned to his room, he practiced secretly while thinking. He wanted to repay their loyalty and enthusiasm, but he absolutely couldn't let them know he was using the stealth skill. He secretly trained all night using the assassination skill that Adrian allowed him to conceal his true physical condition, which was currently being activated in a limited way to fool everyone. An experience system was boosting his physical strength by 1. He received a notification about the power boost, and Ryan suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. If he let his guard down for even a moment, he would be discovered. He recalled the morning when he couldn't maintain his disguise under pressure. Alejandro, he had to make up an excuse to escape. "I need to use the restroom," he said while the man helplessly called after him. A few minutes later, after checking the magic, Rian frowned and discovered the instability. Indeed, this body wasn't strong enough to maintain the skill. Every time he moved vigorously, the control of the stealth skill collapsed. He quickly opened the status window to check his progress. Ran Sigma level 3 strength, 17 agility, 10 stamina, 14 magic, 14 Kursai rank B. After looking at it, he felt overjoyed. Everything was going very smoothly. 3 months of secret training had yielded positive results with all stats exceeding 20. The leveling process would truly begin. The first goal was to acquire the hidden class like in the game, and then he had to level both Necromancer and Assassin to the highest rank. The next day, when he stepped out into the hallway, Rian accidentally saw Alejandro talking to a stranger. He wondered about Alejandro and the guest, but when he saw the stranger's face clearly, he was surprised and silently called out in his mind, "The steward of the Sickmin house, the creditor, H.E.L.D." He quickly noticed Rian's presence. He bowed to Rian, saying, "I apologize for interrupting your training." Then the creditor respectfully presented a carefully sealed scroll. Rian immediately understood the issue. Although the timeline had shifted slightly, it was indeed the right moment for this. He was definitely here to deliver that fateful letter. Alejandro stepped beside him, his voice lowering. "Is it time already?" Rian then opened the scroll, his eyes quickly scanning the content. It was an invitation to the birthday party of the 2 princes of the Diren Calderon Kingdom on 12/8/1892. That date was the final piece in the plan to destroy the Sickmin house. The Sickmin carriage rolled out of the territory early on the day of departure. Since they had to set off at dawn, Rian had dozed off the entire journey. When he stirred awake, the creditor kindly asked, "You're awake now, you've been sleeping soundly since we set off." But Ryan rubbed his eyes childishly, blaming, "It's because Colin stayed up so late last night to change clothes for me." He recalled the horrifying scene from last night when Colin personally picked out the flashy outfits and mumbled about which outfit was suitable for entering the royal palace. Rian sighed and advised the creditor not to follow along. It would be quite difficult. The creditor nodded in understanding. "I get it because neither Alejandro nor Ms. Senna can accompany you today." Rian silently agreed, not expecting that at this moment a large horde of monsters would appear, making it a suspiciously perfect timing. The main role of the Sickmin house was to guard the borders and prevent monsters from the dark regions from invading the mainland. Alejandro had been urgently dispatched there, while Senna was summoned home by her mother to handle some business. Their biological mother summoned her with an irresistible call. Thanks to this coincidence, a 12-year-old kid like him became the only representative of the family to enter the royal capital. Seeing the young master deep in thought, the creditor reassured him, "But you don't need to worry, in the Diren Kingdom no one dares to touch the main line of the Sickmin house." However, this statement only made Rian more anxious. If it were the Sickmin house of old, renowned and powerful, then indeed no one would dare to touch it. In the past, for royal events like this, it was enough to send a servant to represent them, but now, the family had declined to the point where the heir himself had to travel to attend the birthday party of a prince. Ironically, the one who created this miserable situation was the creditor who pulled back the curtain and looked outside, announcing, "I see it now, the royal capital of Darren Debon." Soon after the convoy entered the bustling city gate of the royal palace where the 2 princes and their entourage were already waiting. Rian stepped out of the carriage greeted by Kai with a warm smile, but his gaze was scrutinizing. The welcoming dragon of Darren was none other than Kai Darren, the ambitious second prince. The creditor and Ryan both bowed their heads in respect, feeling honored to be invited by His Highness Kai. "Thank you for the warm welcome from the kingdom," he said. However, this greeting made him feel ironic. After Ryan secretly activated the sensing magic from the city gate to the royal palace, he clearly felt the scrutinizing gazes of the townsfolk. They were directed at the carriage, their pitying eyes aimed at a family on the verge of collapse. It seemed the rumors about him had spread very effectively, with whispers echoing, "That's Rian Sickmin, the one who ruins a family," the rumors said. Wasn't the downfall of the Sickmin house indeed true? Rain glanced at the noble faces around him, hidden behind the dazzling ceremonial masks, revealing nothing but mockery and contempt. Everything was progressing according to plan. Today was indeed a beautiful day. Not wanting to ruin the act, Ryan pretended to be shy and awkwardly responded to the prince's greeting. "Hello." Seeing that awkward demeanor, the creditor was so embarrassed that he covered his face. The townsfolk, noticing Darren's dragon was just a timid boy who spoke clumsily, smiled mockingly, but secretly felt satisfied, wondering if they should continue playing along with this rhythm. 5 days later at the dining hall for the escort soldiers, the healer grumbled, tapping a rhythm on the table. "We're heading to the palace for the birthday party in a week to escort the young master, right?" Philip replied while munching on a chicken leg. "That's right. It's been 5 days since the young master entered the city." Ethan sighed, realizing the problem. Arriving early was meant for mingling with other groups in the kingdom, but he thought, lower your expectations. Didn't you notice when we got to the palace? Although the young master was shy around strangers, he couldn't even manage a greeting in front of the nobles. Suddenly the healer collapsed onto the table, crying like a child and wailing since entering the room. He hasn't stepped out even once in 5 days. In the palace, the event before the birthday was bustling with delicious food, wine, and women. Seeing his comrades suffering from missing out on the fun, Philip chuckled. "Everyone's complaining, so I told my brother to go convince the young master." Before he could finish his sentence, Liam rushed in his face, beaming. "Captain," he recounted exactly what Ryan said. "I will attend the banquet today. I hope you all prepare for me." Liam stammered. "The young master said so." Ethan and Philip cheered, high-fiving each other, then shouted in unison, "Great." Liam quickly added Ryan's instructions, but he warned that before making an appearance, they had to keep it a secret, even from the steward. The creditor paused for a moment. "But for the escort, we need to prepare and report. However, the craving for a party has blown away all rules." The healer chuckled. It's fine. Philip chimed in. "As long as we get to attend the party, that's enough." After discussing the plan to skip work for the party, the three of them immediately dashed off to prepare. In a hidden corner above, Ryan had taken in all their actions, thinking that this way the soldiers would be less disgruntled and a bit more loyal. Over the past few days, he'd taken the opportunity to practice comfortably in his room without being disturbed. But attending the party wasn't just about winning over the escort soldiers. He had a bigger purpose, a big fish to catch. Ryan was right. Today, the Phantom family's carriage would arrive. Today, he would come. The arrogant face of Sans Phantom flashed in his mind once again, and Ryan's gaze turned sharp, filled with determination. That afternoon in the palace's grand hall, amidst the lively atmosphere, the announcement rang out loudly, "Young Master Sans Phantom is entering." The large doors slowly opened and Sans strode in, confidently, followed by a large entourage. Exuding the arrogance of a superior, his gaze swept over the crowd and landed on the creditor, raising an eyebrow in surprise. The creditor quickly turned away, trying to avoid the scrutinizing gaze of the young master. But Sans wasn't one to let him off easily. He stepped forward, his tone teasing. "Isn't this the steward, Hilda?" The creditor had to turn back politely, bowing in return. "Young Master Sans Phantom has come personally." The prince must be quite surprised. Sans smirked casually, asking about the main character. "I heard the Sickmin family arrived earlier, but where's the famous Ryan Sickmin?" He emphasized famous with sarcasm, like a dagger poking at the pride of the person opposite him. The creditor was so angry that he clenched his lips tightly, trying to suppress his frustration. Seeing the other party silent, Sans continued to provoke. "What do you mean by famous?" "Oh, haven't you all heard the tale of the ominous omen of the Sickmin family?" The creditor looked at him, cursing silently. Indeed, Sans, a 5-circle mage at 15, was expected by his family, so arrogance had seeped into his blood. But to insult the Sickmin family right at the kingdom's banquet, where the Sickmin family once held sway, it was indeed audacious. But while the creditor clenched his fist until they turned white from humiliation, Sans suddenly changed his tone, pretending to be innocent. "Of course that can't be true. I also think we need to find out who spread those ridiculous rumors and punish them for tarnishing the honor of the noble family." The creditor was sweating coldly, muttering in his head filled with resentment. He had been drinking since he was 7 and had killed people in his territory by 12. The biggest troublemaker in the whole kingdom, like he dares to talk about morals. Just as the tension escalated, the announcement rang out again, cutting through the oppressive atmosphere. "The Dragon of Dre, Young Master Ryan Sickmin of the Sickmin family is entering." All eyes turned to the door as Ryan stepped in. Sans felt a moment of worry. At the same time, the creditor displayed an incredulous expression, shouting in his heart, how could the one who has been holed up in his room all day appear at this moment? Ryan appeared looking neat and confident, completely different from the rumors strolling towards Sans. The crowd around began to murmur, completely contradicting the rumors. With such a dignified appearance, what ominous omen could he possibly be? The bloodline of the Shichmin is unmistakable. Seeing everyone start to turn and praise Ryan, felt his face flush with anger, silently cursing that damn Jackmin for stealing the spotlight. Just moments later, Ryan stood facing him, bowing politely. But his eyes held a challenge right Sans Phantom. "I've heard a lot about you from your brother." Just hearing that name made the creditors break out in a cold sweat. Others chimed in saying, "Isn't he the 4th son of the Shichmin family who went missing?" Sans intended to use this opportunity to cover up thinking. If it was that matter, he had also heard quite a bit about it. Ryan quickly interrupted, launching a preemptive attack. "Sans Phantom is indeed a good person. I've heard a lot about you. You two studied at Chong Academy, right? In the academy, no one is unaware of Sans' reputation, even if they only attended for a few months before dropping out. He was famous enough that everyone knew him." The compliments sounded sweet like honey, but in reality they were a poison that indirectly insulted Sans for being expelled. He was so furious that his face turned bright red, cursing Ryan, that bastard. But Ryan didn't stop there. He delivered a crushing blow. "You once saved a bullied classmate and helped a girl who was being harassed. What else? Oh, right, the knee." Mentioning the knee, Sans' expression changed in horror. The creditor sensed the strong smell of gunpowder and immediately stepped in front of Ryan. Trying to put out the fire, he quickly said that when his knee hurt, it was Sans who brought him good medicine. He hurriedly pulled Ryan away before Sans could unleash his fury. The captain of the swordsmen asked me to convey this to you, but I forgot. Please come over here for a moment. As they passed by, Ryan intentionally threw a knowing smile and a look of disdain at Sans, who stood frozen in place, grinding his teeth. You bastard, how dare you threaten me in front of so many people? He could feel the rage burning behind him. Ryan, feeling smug, thought, go ahead and get angry, Sans Phantom. Your anger is the crucial seed for my plan to sprout. That night in a private room at the palace, after being publicly humiliated by Ryan, Sans unleashed his fury on everything in sight, smashing a precious vase and shouting, Damn it, Ryan, sick me that bastard. Ryan's words echoed in his mind. Oh, right the knee. Sans thought in a panic. Indeed, that Brad must have spilled everything. The fact that he wasn't the one who dropped out but was expelled, even though the Phantom family had silenced everyone, reminded him of that humiliating day. He finally lost his temper, unleashing his magic while shouting at Sans Phantom. You have crossed the line you were not permitted to cross. But at that moment, Sans had tried to defend himself in a cowardly manner. Rad, I truly didn't know that was your girlfriend. I just wanted to cherish her because I thought it was admirable for a commoner to dare to enroll in the academy. But Red wouldn't accept that excuse. Before being a commoner or a noble, you are still a student of the academy, and yet you dared to use magic to harm a female student. Immediately kneel before her and beg for forgiveness. And if you do not plead with a sincere heart, I will discard your family name to kill you. Wrath's 3 threats, filled with murderous intent, terrified Sans to the point where his knees went weak, knowing he was no match for the monster Wrath. Sans had no choice but to kneel and apologize to that common girl named Ella. It was the greatest humiliation of his life, a stain that could never be washed away. Sans held his head and screamed, his eyes turning bloodshot, as he made a ruthless determination. I must continue with the plan. Forget that trash who has become a wraith. Now I need to silence his brother first, he muttered to himself, a twisted smile appearing on his face. After all, he is about to taste suffering. Just then a knock on the door echoed. He irritably shouted, and as the door opened, a man stepped into the darkness of the room. Upon seeing the visitor, Sans smirked his displeasure, turning to disdain. I didn't expect someone to come looking for me at this hour. It was another big shot, the steward of the Shikmin family, the creditor, Held. That night, as the entire palace fell asleep, the carriage of the Seokmin family quietly left the royal capital. Sitting in the carriage, Rian pondered deeply about the party. Everything I intended to do has been achieved. I escaped the image of a useless wastrel planting in everyone's minds, the image of a clever but unfortunate boy without talent, while Sans Phantom had bitten the bait perfectly. The creditor sitting across from him suddenly spoke, breaking the silence. Now I must say your behavior at the party astonished me. I even felt that the flame of hope for the Shikmin family has not completely extinguished. Rian pretended to be surprised. What I not only didn't build relationships with other nobles, but also caused a rift with the Phantom family. The creditor hurriedly explained, but in front of young Master Sans, your actions were truly refreshing. Rian looked at the creditor with deep, unreadable eyes. Suddenly he raised his hand, and a faint purple magic enveloped the space. Seeing this strange action, the creditor anxiously asked, Young Master, why did you suddenly turn off all the soundproofing of the carriage? But before he could finish, Ryan coldly interrupted, reiterating what he had just said. The flame of hope has not completely extinguished. If you truly believe that perhaps you wouldn't have chosen to betray the Sickman family. The creditor, feeling his innermost thoughts exposed, broke out in a cold sweat, his face drained of color. Nevertheless, he still tried to feign ignorance. What are you talking about? Ryan replied with a sharp, resolute tone, Your crime is too heavy to be forgiven. The carriage continued to roll steadily down the road while the soldiers escorting outside were completely unaware of the storm brewing within. Rian's tone shifted to a softer yet authoritative one. But because you committed this crime to protect the Min family, I can forgive you. The creditor stared at him in utter disbelief. Finally, the mask fell away. He bowed his head in acknowledgement, his voice trembling. How do you know this much? After Ryan whispered softly, the sound pierced directly into his mind through the sound transmission technique. I know it's something you had to do. So I gave you a chance. Listen to me and as before, make your own decision. The carriage approached a small stream and Rian recounted his entire counter-espionage plan. After a moment of listening, the creditor exclaimed in disbelief. How could you think of something like this? How did you come up with this plan? Who are you really? But Ryan didn't answer, only looking at him with a serious gaze, one much older than his 12 years. The creditor suddenly covered his face and burst into loud laughter, a mix of tears of relief and overwhelming happiness. Right now, I just want to scream out of excitement. No, Ryan smiled. I know what you will choose. Looking out the window, he announced, We've passed the royal capital. He observed Rian's confident demeanor and suddenly realized that this child knew exactly what was about to happen, yet still managed to smile. No, that's not an innocent smile. It's a chilling cruelty. Just as he thought this, the carriage suddenly slammed to a halt. Brian, the coachman, turned back in confusion, shouting, Why did we stop? Keep going. But as soon as he finished speaking, he was horrified to see the assistant coachman beside him had collapsed, blood oozing from his eyes, nose, and mouth. Brian gasped, stunned as a flurry of arrows whistled through the air, causing the guards to scream. Ambush! Protect the carriage! Be careful. Those arrows are enchanted. Noah, the captain, shouted amidst the chaos. May just set up a barrier. Whoever dares to attack the Min family, step forward and kneel, but taking advantage of the turmoil. Rian quickly donned the outfit of a prepared soldier, perfectly disguised. He shouted to Noah to distract him, and without hesitation, Noah ordered, "Don't approach the carriage until the situation is clear. Even if you're one of mine, I'll still cut you down." But when Noah turned back and saw the carriage door ajar, he hesitated and approached. What's going on? The door swung wide open, revealing an empty interior. His nerves shot. He screamed, "The young master has vanished." Noah was left speechless. What is happening? Meanwhile, in the pitch-black night, a figure rode away like the wind. It was the creditor cloaked in black, urging his horse on, panting from excitement. Behind him, Rian was bound, a perfect hostage. The absolute darkness system was activating, causing sensory disruption. Physical degradation was activating, but Rian silently thought, how long has it been? Even various abnormal state spells had been placed upon him. At this moment, the Min family guards must be in chaos. In his past life after this kidnapping event, the Min family had poured all their efforts into searching for the last direct heir. The result was a rapid decline, leading to complete collapse. But for Ryan in the present, this event was the seventh strike. He would push it to the exact moment he wanted, taking full advantage of it. He recalled the creditor's astonished expression when he heard the plan. The situation of the Min family was already very serious. If at such a time I showed signs of trying to revive the family, the other noble families would surely feel threatened and seek to suppress us. If they allied and attacked, the current Min family wouldn't be able to withstand it. Therefore, I deliberately let rumors spread to show them that the last direct heir of this sexy family absolutely could not become a threat to them, making them complacent. However, even if the other families fell into the trap, the Phantom family, which wanted to crush the Min family to its roots, would certainly not let me be at ease. So I just needed to take advantage of that. Sans Phantom had already fallen for my provocation. If he planned to pull something the moment I returned from the royal capital would be the most opportune time. If there was an insider colluding, that would be even better. This morning, Ryan recalled his own enigmatic smile when he pointed at the creditor and said, "Now make your choice, creditor. Will this upcoming event become the peak of the Min family's collapse, or will it be the starting shot for the revival of the Min family?" Moments later, a system notification appeared before Ryan. Bringing good news, a magic power index had resisted the abnormal state. The green earth had resisted the abnormal state too. Ryan smirked in satisfaction, thinking, good, everything is still going according to plan. He turned to the creditor, the elderly steward, who was now bowing deeply, his voice trembling with regret. I'm sorry, young master. Ryan quickly reassured him with a determined gaze. Follow the plan. Creditor, that is the only way for you to be forgiven. Not stopping there, the next notification continuously popped up. Wahed Baker, magic power has resisted the abnormal state, increasing all stats to 20. The sensory index was released, feeling the surge of power swirling within his body. Ryan silently nodded in satisfaction. Very good. The first growth condition has finally been met after a long ride through the dense forest. The creditor brought Rian to the meeting point where Sans Phantom was already waiting. He pretended to be pleased, feigning praise for the hard work the boy had done. He flashed a fake smile, his tone dripping with condescension, surprised that the gentleman had come in person. After all, this was a transaction. He shot a disdainful glance at the creditor, emphasizing each word, a transaction, in which the creditor was the steward. Hilde of the Sigmund family. He left the sentence hanging, replacing it with a bitter taunt about betrayal from his own master. The creditor clenched his fists, struggling to suppress the boiling anger, to respond, "You're going too far, Lord Sans Phantom." But Sans wasn't going to let it go. He continued to mock, making an insulting comparison. I can hear a dog barking. A dog that betrays its master should just accept the price it has to pay. With that, Sans tossed out a carefully sealed scroll. This is the information I bought with the intelligence from the San family verified information. The creditor grabbed the scroll, asking suspiciously, "This information is reliable, right?" Sans Skin affirmed the San family is also a renowned name in the Dre family, known for their assassins. But information trading is their main business, and they never sell fake news, including information about the disappearance of the Sigmund family's lost heirs. Meanwhile, while the two were talking, Ryan kept his eyes tightly shut, pretending to be unconscious, but inside he was calculating. This was the reason the creditor betrayed the Sigmund family. He sold me out, a powerless heir, in exchange for a chance to find his lost brothers, those who could truly lead the Sigmund family. Even knowing that the San family held the information, the creditor couldn't buy it himself. The Phantom family must have acted first, offering the highest price with their superior financial power. Once the deal was done, Sans stepped toward Ryan coldly, ordering the creditor, "You can go now. Your job is done. You traitor." Before turning away, the creditor shot a warning glance. "Keep your promise." Sans scoffed, "A promise, just empty words." "Of course, your precious young master will be sent back home. Jack Min without a scratch." The creditor gritted his teeth and quickly mounted his horse, disappearing into the night. Once he was out of sight, Henry Sans' subordinate spoke up. "What about him now?" Sans curled his lip in disdain. "No need, he's just a dead man walking. I'm sure the Seokmin family has realized he's the traitor by now, and he has to return to the Seokmin family for the grand plan to proceed as intended." Today, Henry bowed his head. "Everything is ready." He hesitated to ask further, "Will you do it yourself?" Sans roughly grabbed Rian's hair, yanking his head up. His eyes gleamed with cruelty. Of course, I have to be here to see the face of that traitor just waiting for this moment. Soon after, the group moved to a secret location. A while later, Rian slowly opened his eyes as the dizziness faded. The first image he saw was Sans' exaggerated face, looming close. Ah, the prey is awake. Sans unceremoniously gripped his head. You little brat, do you understand the situation now? Rian glanced around, realizing he was in a damp cell. Sans had tightly bound his hands and feet to a chair. He couldn't help but laugh mockingly at Rian's pitiful state, truly unable to hold back his laughter. The heir of the Shikman family is in such a miserable state. Rian calmly asked, his voice ringing out sharply. Sans Phantom, what do you intend to do? He spread his arms, casually replying, Can't you see? I just kidnapped someone of noble blood from the Shikman family. You don't know what will happen next, do you? Rian pretended to be confused. Sans stared blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter as if he had heard a joke. You think you're scaring me? Just like at that banquet? But in response to that mockery, Rian only smiled knowingly. Seeing that attitude, Sans's face darkened as he began to bring up old stories to humiliate him. I guess you've heard a lot from your brother, huh? But he hasn't told you this, has he? That when your father and brothers all died? He said, kicking Rian hard, shouting, Don't be so arrogant in front of the Phantom family. You probably don't even know why you were brought here, do you? Despite the blood trickling from the corner of his mouth from the kick, Rian maintained an oddly calm expression. While Sans was rambling on, pleased with himself, Rian was quietly casting a spell. The one who was always surrounded by guards in that safe carriage, the creditor sold you out. He traded you for information about the whereabouts of your brothers. No one is coming to save you. Want to know what will happen next? The war between the Phantom family and the Shishmin family, your kidnapping is just the first stone in this game. Got it. After hearing his grand plan, Rian burst out laughing, his gaze sharp as a knife. What a loudmouth, really. In that moment, a powerful surge of magic erupted from Rian, causing Sans to step back in fear, not understanding what was happening. As the magic circle activated, Rian calmly declared that the magical light enveloped him, healing all his wounds in an instant. Sans stared in disbelief, unable to comprehend what he was witnessing, but refusing to give up, he quickly began to chant a counterspell. In stark contrast to his opponent's panic, Rian felt an overwhelming joy. He had returned to the Dre continent, and was just waiting for this very day. By the time Sans realized something was off, it was already too late. He shouted, What the hell is happening to my legs? They were bound tightly by his own magic. Rian's power had spread throughout the room, turning it into his domain. Sans struggled in a panic. What the hell? Nothing's happening. He pointed at Ryan's face, trying to act tough. Just to buy a few seconds, you're pulling this ridiculous stunt. Hey, you idiot. I told you, right? But before he could finish, Sans was left speechless, his face twisted in shock. Rian looked up, his eyes shining with magic. You're talking too much. Sans opened his mouth to curse again, but no sound came out. His throat ached painfully, and he could only mumble in despair, clutching his throat in sheer terror, unable to make a sound. Rian explained nonchalantly, like a teacher lecturing. With this silence spell, your advanced magic has been sealed. A wizard who can't chant spells. What do you think will happen? Sans was frantic, trying to launch an attack without chanting towards Rian. Then Fireborn doesn't need to chant, he screamed in his mind. Rian didn't even bother to dodge, casually watching the weak fireball fly towards him. Without chanting, you can only use magic up to the 3rd level. Moreover, right now, you can't even use damaging spells. This kidnapping was an order from the head of the Phantom family, but while Sans was desperately trying to attack, Rian calmly analyzed, You definitely want to avoid me dying. Just as I thought, you can only use magic 2 levels lower than your ability, and that's your mistake. The fireball from Sans aimed at Rian's leg. He was smug, thinking, breaking a leg, surely Dad will forgive me. But before he could even smile, his magic vanished the moment it touched Rian. The system had resisted his magic, and Sans went crazy, switching to a higher level fire spell. Rian smirked. This time it's a 3rd level spell, huh? What a pity, but you've lost your last chance, he said lightly. You think I'm just going to stand here and let you hit me? With just a flick of his wrist, Rian countered the attack, leaving Sans utterly astonished by the equal strength. But that wasn't the end. Rian used his gaze to control the flow of magic, binding Sans's hands. A sharp pain shot through his head, attacking his nervous system. Sans's nerves made him collapse to the floor in agony. As long as the magic reaches a predetermined level, I can immediately nullify it. Now whatever you do is useless. You idiot at the end of your rope! Sans pulled out a hidden dagger, desperate, but once again, he opened his eyes wide in horror as Rian effortlessly used magic to break the chains binding him like snapping a dry twig. Surprised, huh? For me right now, breaking these chains is just a small matter. And there's not just 2 spells. After Rian suddenly moved his fingers, he activated another magic circle right under Sans's feet paralysis. When the black mist touched Sans's body, he screamed in agony. His body stiffened, turning to stone before crashing down to the floor motionless. Rian stepped forward and leaned down to look at the defeated one. Wake up, but before your consciousness fades into darkness. Sans managed to hear the cold whisper. Now the roles have reversed. A moment later, Sans woke up, realizing he was tightly bound to a chair, just like Rian had been before. In front of him, Rian was playing with a dagger. Oh, you're awake. You slept too long, I almost had to wake you up. Hey, you have a nice dagger, huh? You're tied up by your own chains. Sans thrashed wildly, grinding his teeth. Suddenly he froze, realizing that the bindings were just ordinary iron chains, not a magic seal. He felt a surge of joy. This idiot, just as the thought of resistance crossed his mind, Ryan snapped his fingers and an invisible blade of wind slashed into Sans, making him scream in pain. Ryan looked at him with disdain. You think I'm that stupid, Sans? He coughed, his head spinning, unable to see the magic circle anywhere. Rian tilted his chin towards Sans's bare body. You think I'd tie up a wizard without any preparation? I've already inscribed the magic circle all over your body. Sans, horrified, asked, What is that? Instead of answering, Rian plunged the dagger into his thigh, blood gushing out. Aha! Rian calmly continued inscribing magical symbols onto his flesh. You should understand this right. The forbidden technique of inscribing magic circles as scars on the body is terrifyingly effective, and this blood magic circle is something Sans recognized well because he had once used it on Rian in a past life. Rian recalled that pain. Filled with resentment, he activated the awakening magic so he wouldn't faint just to carve scars onto the body of a 12-year-old child like me. Sans trembled and asked, Why? How do you know how to use that kind of magic, moreover, according to the investigation? You still can't use magic, but Ryan doesn't bother to explain. He just quietly recalls his journey thanks to the memories of his past life and the experiences at Adrian after receiving the mana training method 3 months ago. The first thing I do is focus on upgrading my stealth skill. Each skill has a secret core that only those who reach the master player level like me can perceive. I still remember the core of all the skills I've ever possessed because of that. I don't need to study or train from scratch. I just need mana and the right conditions to learn. But thanks to my stealth skill, Rian has sneaked into this place many times, memorizing every nook and cranny to set traps to catch Sans, making it easy for him to fall into them. It's surprisingly convenient, Rian thinks. This is the pain-inflicting formation you intended to use on me. Now you should worry about how it will affect you during the prolonged torture, from late at night until dawn breaks. Sans screams hoarsely, finally desperately pleading. Please stop. It hurts too much. Just stop. Ryan repeats exactly what Sans said in his past life. All right, let's call it a day for now. Here, Sans. He breathes out softly, but immediately changes his tone, trying to find a way to survive. No, I'll give you a chance. My family members are coming soon. Run away right now because you stopped torturing me. That's why I'm telling you. Rian coldly interrupts. That's in a week. Sans jumps in shock. How do you know? Rian recounts every word from his plan because he wanted to enjoy torturing me alone. He told his subordinates to come back only after a week, and now Sans is left speechless. So you weren't unconscious then? He stutters. No, they'll be here any minute. Rian sees through his heart. If they're coming, are you planning to let me know? No, if it were you, you'd definitely be as silent as a grave, just begging for mercy until the Phantom family comes here to kill me. Sans grits his teeth, his face pale as a ghost. Ryan delivers another shock. Because they belong to your family, the Phantom Fingers. Mentioning the Phantom Fingers makes Sans scream in denial. Your family is not related to the so-called Phantom Fingers. It's true. Rian says, not listening anymore. He slaps Sans hard, activating the magical seal on him, causing a searing pain. Rian turns his back and walks away, leaving behind the wails of despair. Then keeps screaming. A promise is a promise, so I won't touch you today. But in my mind, I'm calculating every move. Then let's prepare for guests, shall we? The elite team from the Phantom family will arrive in a week, and there mustn't be a single mistake. A week later in the evening, the Phantom family members indeed arrive, led by Ake, one of the Phantom Fingers. You're here, sir, Ake asks in a deep voice. Henry nods. Yes, it's been a week since the young master kidnapped the boss's little one and came in here. But there hasn't been any contact, so I reported to you, Ake. Ake frowns, pondering, that's strange. In the past week, no one else approached. Yes, the passage here is being closely monitored. Ake clicks his tongue, starting to gather mana. If that kid gets too far and causes trouble, it'll be a big problem. The master's order is to bring the kid from the Min family back alive. I'll go in. Yes. Henry prepares to follow, but Ake shouts loudly. You're just a hindrance. Wait outside. The Phantom Fingers prioritize the master's orders above anything else. Even the bloodline of the Phantom family is no exception. Ake finishes speaking and steps inside each step, cautious and probing. Strange, there's an unsettling aura, but I can't sense any mana. Suddenly, Rian's magical traps activate, rushing towards him. Ake quickly creates a protective shield, assessing the situation. Is this a trap activated through a magic circle? This guy not only knows the structure here, but also possesses considerable strength. Who set these traps in every corner? Is it the sexy family or a third party? Ake yells out of frustration, preparing for an attack. I don't know who that bastard is, but I will make you regret messing with a member of the Phantom family. Approaching the cell door, he sees no guards and breaks in the sight before him, startling him. Sans is slumped in a chair, blood flowing like a river. Young master, Ake rushes to check. Sans weakly opens his eyes, joyfully seeing his savior. He uses a magic artifact to check the seal on Sans's hand. This mana must be Sans' phantom. He turned to look at Rian, who was sitting silently in the corner of the room, and asked Sans what was going on. Hurry up, San ordered. We need to get the recovery potion, but first we have to get out of here. The enemy hasn't shown themselves yet. It's very dangerous. He glanced at Ryan with suspicion, having already restrained and tied up that young master. But they didn't take that kid away, so their goal isn't just to rescue him. It's definitely a trap. Just then, Sans pointed at Rian and shouted, "The one who got us into this mess is that guy Rian." Sikmin, the evil spirit, was startled, and without hesitation he turned to attack Rian. First, I'll use magic to make that kid unable to move. Willpower, shatter both body and spirit, a perfect binding. He chanted a level 7 spell, but Ryan calmly opened his eyes and replied, "You're being too cautious." Immediately, the evil spirit's magic was reflected back at him. He panicked and shouted for fire, resulting in a huge explosion that shook the room. But the evil spirit realized something was off. An illusion. The next moment, he coughed up blood and staggered back. "You cancelled my level 7 spell before I even finished the chant." "But it seems to have side effects," Ryan said with a smirk. "The mana being reversed must feel uncomfortable, right? A grand sorcerer like you should recover quickly. If you noticed something was off when you entered this room, you should have dealt with me first." Mocked by a child, the evil spirit was furious. "How dare you use illusions against me? A master illusionist. Oh, deceptive visuals disappear." He attempted to dispel Ryan's illusion. But Ryan really charged forward, holding Sans' dagger recklessly. The evil spirit roared, and with one blow he was sent flying like a kite with a broken string, blood splattering everywhere. "You think this is enough to hit my weak spot? Even if you smash half my face, the master will let it slide. Perhaps that illusion was your ultimate move." He sneered, stepping closer to Rian. "Just how much have you underestimated Phantom's finger?" But suddenly he froze, looking down at his feet, where the dagger Rian had held earlier lay on the ground, moving slightly. His eyes widened in horror as a sharp blade pierced through his neck from behind. Blood gushed out, causing him to choke and struggle for breath. The one holding the dagger was Sans, looking at his master with disbelief. But Sans opened his mouth with a mocking tone, just like Rian, filled with useless arrogance that led to his own downfall. "Do you know how to transfer a soul?" Sans smirked maliciously. "My soul is currently trapped in your body unconscious, and you can guess that you can't kill me." Because of the master's command, the blood magic circle drawn on this body not only amplifies the pain, but also has the magic to transfer my soul into another body to control it. This is my real trump card. The demon coughed up blood while trying to chant a spell to attack Sans' body, which contained Rian's soul. Flames erupted, incinerating the room and melting the iron mask on his face, but it was too late. The demon collapsed, taking its last breath. Rian in Sans' body stepped out of the sea of flames, only slightly singed thanks to the protective magic. He looked at the demon's corpse and smiled triumphantly. "Gotcha." Ryan returned to his true body and took a strange potion from the demon. He poured it over himself to activate a skill. An anti-pain skill system had been created. The skill level for pain resistance increased by 2. Rian held his head, mumbling, "It hurts, but there's no other way." He quickly staged the scene using water to fake sweat on Sans' face. "I did it. I just hunted a level 7 archmage." One of Phantom's fingers suddenly triggered a series of eye-catching notifications in the system mission completed level. Increased level, jumped from 2 to 15. Although it was an obvious result after defeating the demon, was it because of the last mission? No, in front of him there was something urgent to do. He drew a new magic circle, placing the demon's corpse on a wooden board in the center. The success of this would determine how much the upcoming plan would be expedited. He began channeling mana into the circle to perform the descent ritual. Level and class change. 4. Your level has decreased by 5. You have completed the additional conditions. You have leveled up to the hidden class Shadow Assassin. The hidden class of the assassin is achieved when agility reaches 20 and mana reaches 15. Before reaching the threshold for evolution level 5, Ryan shouted internally, "Success." But if there are still levels left, he could try 2 more times. Lightning streaked across the sky, striking the castle as if to prevent him from defying fate. Rian continued to push mana into the circle. 4. You have successfully evolved. You have leveled up to the Death Hand, a high-tier profession of the Dark Mage. Ryan was thrilled with the opportunity. Once was enough. The Death Hand, a combination of Dark Mage and Assassin, was incredibly powerful. He took a deep breath, his eyes gleaming with madness. "If I can successfully level up a 3rd time with the remaining levels, I will receive the mysterious class Phantom. That is the top class that helps players like Adrian become the strongest. The problem is, the key to obtaining the high-tier class of Phantom is the size of the soul. If I fail, the consequences will be severe, but there's no time to hesitate." Ryan decided to bet everything. "Your level has decreased by 5, warning your soul is damaged." Rian screamed in pain, blood pouring from his mouth and eyes, feeling as if his entire body was being torn apart. Was leveling up to a high-tier class for the 3rd time. Impossible. In the midst of the pain, memories of his past life flooded back like a torrent. The image of Alejandro dying for him, Senna's bloodied face, the tears of loved ones. All that pain turned into fuel, igniting his soul and creating a terrifying willpower. "Even if I have to sacrifice my soul, I will obtain the high-tier class of Phantom." Magic exploded to its maximum. "Your soul is strong enough to perform a mysterious class that is now opening. You have leveled up to a Wraith. Wraith, the high-tier class of Phantom." Ryan stared in shock at the new card Wraith, a class he had never seen before, even in Adrian. It was even higher than Phantom. He looked at the demon's corpse, smiling cunningly. Now is the time to execute the original plan. The original innate ability of Phantom enhances the power of Dark Mage spells. Killing a level 7 mage was also part of this plan. Hopefully this precious material could withstand the activation of the 4 skill systems to create a Lich. Ryan began the ritual, which normally required a Dark Mage level of 70 to perform. But with the material being the corpse of a level 7 mage, anything was possible. The eyes of the demon's corpse suddenly glowed unnaturally. The system failed to create a Lich, activating the creation of a special monster. Ryan panicked. This was beyond his expectations. A massive amount of mana was released. The demon's body slowly stood up, but its form had completely changed. It was no longer the rough man, but the shape of a girl with enchanting beauty and dark power. The system had successfully created a special monster. The girl smiled at Rian, a cold yet submissive smile. Would you like to name her? The monster creation ritual was just completed. A massive surge of mana erupted from Rian's position, tearing through the night and accidentally dyeing a corner of the sky red with brilliant magical light, followed by the aftershocks. A terrifying explosion shook the ground, leaving anyone outside in a state of shock amidst the chaos. Zae shouted loudly, his panicked gaze sweeping over the crowd. What was that explosion? Sans didn't respond. All that met him was a chilling silence. Moments later, from the smoke and rubble, Ryan emerged in S's body, carrying the lifeless form of Ryan on his shoulder. The soldiers were left stunned, stammering, Master. Ryan didn't answer, only furrowing his brow, his sharp gaze piercing into them. To avoid suspicion, he quickly fabricated a reason to blame the enemy. Zane stared in disbelief. What? Before the opponent could recover, Ryan immediately interrupted. With a voice full of rage, he exclaimed, This idiot is real. I'm one of Fan's fingers who betrayed me. Can't you see my situation and still not understand? He pretended to be angry, striding decisively toward the horse, then gently placed himself onto its back, his tone dropping. Luckily, I used an artifact to bind him, but I definitely can't hold him for long. I will take Ryan Sherman away from here before you hold back Akaya, giving me time to return to the clan. Do you understand reinforcements will arrive immediately? If you complete the task of stopping him, you will all be richly rewarded. With that, he didn't hesitate to spur the horse and dashed away, leaving the bewildered crowd behind. At the main camp, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Zane was crouched at the feet of Pyrrhus, the 7th-level sorcerer of the Phantom clan, trembling as he thought and muttered in fear about not finding any trace of the enemy. This morning, Pyrrhus gripped the report in his hand so tightly it crumpled. His face hardened with suspicion. Is this report really true, Zane? So the only ones who know what happened that night are you? Zane understood that his fate was hanging by a thread. He glanced at the figure behind Pyrrhus and stammered, Yes, that's right. But that answer was also his last breath. A cold blade swung up like lightning, leaving Zane just enough time to let out a desperate scream before blood sprayed like rain. Having dealt with the useless Bevis, he still couldn't feel at ease. The disappearance of Master Fatan was an incalculable disaster. If the Phantom's fingers were involved in the kidnapping of Chief Sem, trouble would come crashing down like a flood. Just then, outside the tent, a loud commotion erupted. Virus stepped out, his eyes immediately catching sight of Beavis, loudly threatening a bold intruder who dared to breach the camp. Ignoring the warnings, the intruder took another step forward, infuriating Beavis. It was Alejandro. He gritted his teeth, his eyes blazing with fury as he glared at Beavis. It took him a moment to speak. What if I take another step? They will kill all of you worthless trash. The murderous aura radiating from Alejandro was intense. Seeing the opponent daring to act arrogantly in his territory, Beavis immediately shouted to hold him accountable for invading another clan's territory. And without prior notice, you don't think this will become an excuse for war between the clans? Alejandro remained unfazed, turning to retort sharply. Didn't you all start the war first? Get Master Rian out here. Beavis shot a glance at the army, ready in formation in the distance, trying to counter. It's not that you suspect, it's that you're absolutely sure. As Alejandro pointed directly at the camp, his voice booming. That is a suspicious structure and an underground base we discovered. Isn't the Phantom clan setting up camp right in front of us? To hide what's happening here? Cornered by the opponent, Virus reluctantly lowered his voice to confess the humiliating truth. We really don't know where Chief Semin is. Moreover, our young master's product is also missing. We hope you will cooperate in the search. Today, Alejandro coldly interrupted. My patience has run out. Yet he didn't believe the silence. This insolent attitude had angered Pierce. Alejandro sternly warned him, We will not allow you to tamper with the scene before the investigation is complete. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately cast a powerful spell. On the other side, Beavis refused to back down, unleashing his power in response. From a distance, the creditor secretly observed the situation, mumbling to himself anxiously about the appearance of the Phantom army. But at that moment, Senna's icy voice rang out beside him, chastising his excessive chatter. Who allowed you to speak freely? The betrayer. The creditor knew he was in trouble. Sweat pouring down like rain. Feeling helpless and frustrated, he could only keep quiet. Senna suddenly unleashed magic, his gaze sharp as a dagger. If it weren't for the young master's words, I would have turned you to dust long ago. Now shut your mouth and only speak about finding the master. In front of Senna, The creditor could only bow his head in obedience. The master said he would leave a trace. Senna scanned the desolate forest around. In a place like this, the creditor hurriedly explained his viewpoint. If it were easy to find, the Phantom clan would have discovered it first. Only the Green Earth Beast Tamer of Chief Semin can find it. No matter what, the master has succeeded once already. The resonant qualities of the instrument surely still linger, albeit faintly, as Senna conjured a glowing magical sphere and hurled it forward only for it to collide with an invisible barrier and vanish. She quietly gasped as a familiar surge of mana emerged from the nearby bushes, leaving the creditor wide-eyed in surprise, wondering what was happening. The figure that appeared was none other than S, leaving both feeling utterly deflated. Senna turned to the creditor and said with a tone of disappointment, "It's just a Suns fan." However, she quickly noticed a piece of fabric covered in spells hanging around his neck, and more importantly, a letter carefully placed under a small stone. Senna immediately felt tense as the creditor impatiently called out to him, loudly asking the other party, "Is there any sign of the master?" Senna quickly replied, "Wait, there's a letter here." She trembled as she opened the letter. Everything was according to Rian's plan. If it were Sina, she would definitely find it. The letter contained a meticulous plan that he had laid out, where he once thought of taking over S's body to disrupt the internal affairs of the Foon clan. But if it were the clan leader fight on an 8th level sorcerer, the chances of him discovering that I had swapped souls were very high. If I returned to the Esmin clan as Rian, it could spark a war between the two clans. Because of this, the Esmin clan. Currently, they are not strong enough to withstand a war, so there's only the third option left. Before I disappear, I must leave behind a convincing explanation. After reading it, Senna immediately used magic to incinerate the letter into ashes. The creditor, unable to contain his curiosity, pressed on. "What does it say?" Senna calmly replied, "It's a closely guarded secret. Let's return to the Esmin clan." Just as the letter turned to ash, a great eagle soared towards the city, flying straight towards the rising sun. Below the eagle's shadow, a boy was hurriedly running. Hubert saw him and called out loudly, "Hey, the group leader is looking for you. Let's go." Turning back to Senna, the creditor was still rambling, urging her about the contents of the letter. Senna began to feel annoyed and she snapped at him, "I've made up my mind already." At that moment, Hubert obediently replied, "Yes, sir." It turned out that this boy named Long was actually Ryan in disguise. Senna understood this subtly and said half jokingly, half seriously, "The young master has become the dragon of his aunt." 3 months later, in the bustling streets of the Lion Kingdom's capital, Rian, now under the new identity of Lion, accidentally overheard the excited chatter of the townsfolk. "Have you heard the news? The Phantom and Smink clans are at odds. The Lion and Foie kingdoms had to intervene to settle this matter." "What's the reason I heard it was because a traitor from the Fenton clan kidnapped the last descendant of the X-Men bloodline. Finally, the Min clan accepted compensation from Fenton, but the criminal has yet to be found. The kidnapped child is also missing, but what is the S-Min clan thinking to accept compensation? Their clan head, known as the Golden Dragon, has long since disappeared. Once a prestigious family, now reduced to a pile of ruins. Just then, Lion caught the apple Hubert, threw him as a farewell, and left. He is now a member of the Phantom branch of the Martin Assassination Guild." News about the two clans had also reached Safia, the level 2 assassin and branch head of Phantom. She took a sip of her drink and casually remarked that the disappearance of the last descendant of the clan made the compensation even more necessary. Safia suddenly paused, pondering, then sighed. "What a bore, all this old news that everyone knows. What about the news of the Smin clan's steward being executed?" Then he placed his glass down on the table with a clink, speaking seriously. "He was discovered collaborating with Patton. Alejandro beheaded him immediately." Safia raised her eyebrows in surprise. "He was a famous swordsman." "So you know the opponent is a master swordsman on the continent?" he replied, just as the large door swung open, interrupting their conversation. Safia cheerfully exclaimed upon seeing the person enter, "You're here, Lai." Lee quickly approached, greeting. "Hello, Uncle Dan." The man casually replied, "Are you here to meet the branch head?" Safia invited him to sit, sliding a letter towards him. "Finally, you're here today." "Do you know what this is?" she asked. "It's a letter recommending you to become an official member of Phantom." Lai smiled faintly but held back his excitement to maintain a calm demeanor. After all, there was still one more test to go. Safia nodded in confirmation. That's right. It's your first battle, isn't it? But for you, this test won't mean much, right?" She handed him the letter, her expression turning serious. "The assassination clan's reputation is at stake. The 4th largest assassination group on the continent has only been around for 2 months in the Phantom branch, and you've already surpassed all challenges to reach the final test." Seeing Lion's wary gaze, Safia laughed, praising, "Our branch has indeed welcomed an extraordinary talent. The shortest trial period, and the youngest member in 100 years. Lai humbly responded, "I'm still nowhere near the level of a second-tier assassin branch." Safia immediately retorted, pretending to be modest. "Anyway, compared to the first time we met, your expression is much better now." She lifted her teacup, her gaze distant, as she recalled the past memories, taking her back to a rainy night 2 months ago when Lai appeared drenched, but with an unusually determined look in his eyes, bringing a huge sum of money to make a request. At that time, Safia looked at him with annoyance, thinking it was a joke. Lai simply replied, "I heard that. As long as you have the money, this branch will take requests after confirming the amount." "You treated me like a customer, but now," she explained, It's not because of the money that my attitude has changed. I have a feeling that I might not meet someone as strange as you again, right? A ragged little boy bringing money to request the assassination of himself. That's quite an interesting twist. Lai covered his mouth, chuckling softly. He stood up to take the letter, saying he would read it himself. Before leaving, he turned back to remind her to call him when she was ready for the test. Safia smiled and agreed, promising to do so. The door slammed shut as KL stepped out of the shadows, his voice filled with skepticism. Why did you let him in, G? What was your intuition? Sophia, come on, don't joke. You know the process. That boy completed all the assassination training in just a month. In fact, Lai was still outside the door eavesdropping, holding a detailed report. This really is a talent. Did you investigate thoroughly? Lai had green hair and green eyes, picked up from the streets, raised under the guidance of an unknown teacher. One day that teacher disappeared, and then he entered this place to seek information about him, proving himself to join. Matea requested to assassinate himself, which allowed him to be tested on his abilities, and quickly passed the training. Safia still had some doubts about whether it was true. No, it's all accurate. I've been to where he lived with his teacher and found traces of someone nearby. However, Safia still raised the biggest question. Even if the information is correct, the most important thing is there any chance that Lion is Rian's Min? Kay paused, then sighed and shook his head. The chances of them being the same person are extremely low. There's also some information about the Min family's Riensmin. Not only does he lack magical power, but his swordsmanship and physical strength are also weak. Everyone knows that. This result has been monitored since he was born, showing signs of the Min family's decline. How could he possibly be the same person as a genius like Leon? If you want, I can continue investigating. Safia interrupted. No, we can't waste talent like you on useless matters. Investigate more about that teacher. If he really raised Lai, then he definitely isn't an ordinary person. Lion heard the entire conversation thanks to Magic sighing in relief and secretly praising their intuition. The keen perception of this woman made him check the system's status board. Rian X, Min Profession, activated, Death's Hand, level 13, Hidden Profession Phantom. A Ghost, Strength, 27, Agility, 39, Stamina, 24, Magical Power, 30, Senses, 15, Curse, can dominate the physical body, Hidden Form. A Ghost can pressure the spirit. He was satisfied, telling himself that the level drain from changing professions had been recovered. Then investing magical power into dominating the physical body also yielded results, not only changing his appearance, but also making him undetectable by magical sensors, even able to deceive them. The skill to sense the shape of a second-tier assassin. Remembering the day he created that special monster, Ryan named it. When checking the stats of that creature's strength, 7 agility, 5 magical power, 23 skills, pressure, and soul shield. Although the stats were still low, the potential for development was limitless. Back in the present, Lai was standing on the high platform gazing at the moon when Jan appeared. What are you thinking about? Lai startled but quickly regained his composure. I was thinking about what happens after I pass the test and officially become a member, and one day I will become the branch leader. Bajang laughed heartily. With your rate of progress, that could really happen. Dreaming of that, but today there will be 3 candidates and only one of you will pass. Bajang began calling the roll. Balalip Lion, as long as one of you kills the target, you will become an official member. The atmosphere of the test began to tense up. Jan announced loudly, the test begins. First, let's hear information about the target. 4 quick clips played, showing the understanding of our target this time, named Arog, 47 years old, a businessman running a fairly stable shop, always accompanied by 3 mercenaries as bodyguards. 2 of them are bronze-ranked warriors, and 1 is a silver-ranked mage. Bala is no less competitive. There are rumors he just married a young mistress. Every night he goes to her bedroom, so at that time the bodyguards don't come near. Jan was surprised by the preparation of the 2, knowing only the target's name, but having investigated so thoroughly. Knowing the situation of the bodyguards and even finding ways to avoid them is good, but the test is today. Who can guarantee that guy will go to the mistress's room? This tricky question left both of them in a bind. Jan turned to Lai. Do you have any information? Speak up. You've got the bodyguard situation down and even figured out how to avoid them, which is impressive, but the test is today. Who's to say that guy will actually show up at the mistress's room? That question left both of them flustered. Jan turned to Li Ong. Do you have any information? Spill it. Lei sighed nonchalantly and replied, I have to say, it don't I. The answer left everyone stunned as Lai coldly continued. It's not about working together to complete the mission with the official members. This is a test where only one person can pass. I have no reason to share my information, I said while Lip and Pala were angry. What's wrong? We just shared information, right? After all, we are teammates. Lei replied emotionlessly. Teammates. I was never taught about camaraderie in training. In contrast to the anger of the 2 contestants, he smiled mischievously. Exactly, this is a test. It's good to utilize your abilities, but what's important is to use what you've learned to surpass the other 2. Is there anything else to say? He noticed both of them were silent and declared, from now on, feel free to assassinate the target. He watched Lai's back as he silently assessed, this kid is impressive. As night fell at the target's mansion, the lights flickered on, and then Pala had broken the window and rushed outside. The plan failed miserably as the soldiers chased after him, shouting, There's an intruder. Clip was hiding nearby, cursing his teammates' stupidity. You idiot Pala. But thanks to that, my job is going smoothly. If he hadn't been discovered, I would have had to act to expose him. In the bedroom, Arog panicked when he saw his wife burst in with people. He was furious. It was already unbearable to take a mistress. And now she brought a group of assassins too. He quickly tried to clarify with his wife, "No, my love, it's not like that. The assassins are not my fault. This room is equipped with maximum security." Clip was hiding on the ceiling waiting for the right moment to strike when the bodyguards were lured away by Pala. But an unexpected scene unfolded, causing her plans to unravel. Arog's wife suddenly pulled out a knife, crying and shouting, "I've tried to hold back. I remember the times you used to whisper that you loved me, but I can't let you take money from my family anymore." Arog panicked, explaining that was because of a lack of business capital. She didn't believe him. The money from her family was used to buy gifts for the mistress. Without hesitation, Kelly swung the knife fiercely at her husband. A piercing scream shattered the stillness, and Clip stood frozen. Her whole body trembled at the unbelievable sight before her. She stared at Arog collapsing, his breath fading. Only when she confirmed he was truly dead did Kelly drop the knife from her hand, the metal clattering against the cold floor like a gong. Cold water splashed into her mind, waking her from her frenzy. Kelly was in utter panic, stammering, "What have I done?" Looking at her husband's lifeless body in a pool of blood, she wailed, her cries echoing outside. Arog's subordinates heard the commotion and rushed in loudly, asking, "What's going on, ma'am?" while hiding on the ceiling. Clip calculated silently. The mission target has been killed by the wife. Does that mean this mission is a success or a failure? But why isn't Long here? She couldn't hesitate any longer and quickly withdrew to the rendezvous point. Upon arriving, Clip lowered her head, reporting in a weary voice, "Mission failed. Arog was killed by his wife, not by us." Lai quietly observed Jian's expression while Led felt uncomfortable seeing him standing there relaxed next to him. She wondered why Long was here before her. Did he come to the mansion at the same time as us? Her thoughts were interrupted as she saw Pala crawling back, looking disheveled and with an injured arm. Jian nodded to confirm safety and then listened as Pala proudly recounted, "I escaped because the bodyguards fought each other." Indeed, he had taken advantage of the chaos to escape. After hearing this, Jian clapped his hands, clearly announcing, "The test is over." But the assassination of 7 failed because Lai had completed the mission. Both Clip and Pala exclaimed in unison, "Huh?" Lead, who witnessed everything, immediately protested. "You mean the mission was successful? Arog was clearly killed by his wife." But Jian firmly asserted that was Lai's doing. Seeing them still confused, he calmly explained Lai manipulated Arog's wife into killing her own husband. He controlled her like a puppet. The explanation sent chills down both of their spines as they turned to look at Lai with horrified eyes. Jian put his arm around Lai and asked with a smile, "Can you explain how you did it?" Li pondered, thinking, "Do you think I would answer with a displeased face, like, why should I say anything?" He pretended to sigh in discomfort and then replied, "I will explain." This unexpected collaboration surprised the other two. Lai began narrating the entire plan, emphasizing the relationship between Arog and Kelly, detailing everything until dawn broke. After hearing it, Bala couldn't hide his skepticism. "You exploited the internal situation of the assassination target. How could that be? The branch manager specifically revealed the target only to you beforehand. Isn't that right?" Lai immediately countered, "The moment I knew Arog was the target was no different than the two of you at Phantom. He's quite a famous businessman, so just hearing his name confirms it. According to the information from the two of you, Arog is a liquor dealer, and the fact that he just took a mistress is also true. The information about the bodyguard's levels and the mistress's bedroom is accurate, but I had already investigated all of that beforehand. While the two were discussing how to assassinate me, I just needed to follow the plan I had prepared." Both of them looked at Leong with a mix of anger and jealousy. Bala stepped forward, questioning him, "But you said you didn't know who the target was. Now you're saying you've finished the investigation." "That's ridiculous," Leong replied calmly. "I never said I only investigated the target. I've gathered information on all the notorious people who need to be eliminated in the city. By befriending the gossip-sensitive merchants in the city, and since I completed the 2-month training, in just 1 month I used the remaining time to prepare for each target. I was ready to react immediately. No matter who the target is, both of them realized the level of difference in skill and thought to themselves. In other words, he didn't just study for the exam. It was like he read the entire book beforehand." Lion continued to recount the process. "I discovered that someone had a deep hatred for Arog, and that was his first wife, Kelly. I approached this woman, pushed to the edge by her husband, and secretly suggested a way out: hire a hitman." Jan Li and Pala were both stunned by this chilling calculation. Lion continued, "Arog continuously takes mistresses, and even though he looks down on his first wife, he still uses her money to keep his business running. Ken hates him so much, he wants him dead. But in reality, he didn't want him dead. I told Kelly that if she hired more mercenaries and increased security, Arog would be safe. Only the mistress would suffer. And when trouble arose, he would hide in the first wife's room, the safest place in the house. She could just blame the incident on the mistress and her lover, and he would come to his senses and return to her. You see, the woman who's drunk all day because of her husband easily believed my words. If it had ended there, perhaps it would have been as she wished, but just before the assassination plan began, I gave her another piece of information. That the money Arog used to buy gifts for the new mistress was all taken from his first wife, meaning it was money meant for business. Jan silently admitted that from the start we all shared the same thoughts as him. This test had been in that kid's hands for a long time. Even though they had lost, they still had questions about Kelly's actions. Jan asked, "But there's one thing I don't understand. No matter how angry she was, how could an ordinary woman like her stab her husband?" Leong replied, "Because I helped a little. I mixed a potion made from alchemy into the wine delivered to her house." Arog, anticipating possible casualties, I also mixed that potion into the mercenaries' drinks. Luckily, it took effect just in time. What kind of potion was it? Leong explained that the potion temporarily dulled judgment and made people easily agitated. Bala suddenly realized, could it be that the mercenaries fighting each other was also because of you? Leong nodded, yeah. Although I wasn't taught about camaraderie, I didn't want any of us or our training teammates to be killed. Bala squeezed his eyes shut, moved to tears while Leong remained stoic, contemplating the terrifying nature of Leong. In short, everything unfolded just as Leong had calculated. Under the influence of the drug and the information he provided Mrs. Kelly killed Arog in a frenzy. In the end, Leong also had to admit that it wasn't necessary to stab someone personally to call it an assassination, right? Yes, Jiang congratulated him. Congratulations, you've passed the test. But Leong wasn't done. He added another shocker. We can receive additional pay and bonuses from this. Jiang was taken aback. Huh. Leong smirked. You were quite clever to use Ken as an excuse. Ken suddenly became a murderer. But the fact that an assassin broke in is real. Only we know Arog was killed by Ken, not by the assassin in Ken's position. She would definitely want to pay extra to cover up the truth about her husband's death and pin the murder on the assassin. Jan fell silent before this terrifying calculation while Bala silently admired the complete difference. Clip also told himself that from an assassin's perspective, this was indeed an admirable way to handle things. I'd rather compete for second place than compete with Leong. Leon suddenly ordered, "You two go back to Gil. I need to talk to Leon alone." Once the two had left, he asked sternly, "Do you understand what you've done? The woman named Ken will have to live her whole life with the guilt of killing her husband. She was just an ordinary woman and now she's become a murderer. Can you even grasp that feeling? Even just a little?" Jianlong hesitated. "Gil is training a monster, not an assassin." Leong smiled, knowingly explaining, "Before I understood the reason Arog continuously took mistresses, I also viewed her as just an ordinary woman like everyone else. All the mistresses Arog had taken had been dealt with by Ken, including Arog himself. Besides running a liquor business, he also managed drugs, loan sharking, and gambling, ruining countless lives. Ken was the same. Even now, she didn't directly take action, but leveraged her family's power to deal with them. Arog, despite his disdain for her, kept taking mistresses, knowing that whoever he took would end up dead. The mistresses who had died were all manipulated by Ken's power to simply disappear. Their families didn't dare confront Ken. They had no choice but to keep searching for them." Jan pondered, and Leong coldly continued, "But these truths are just information revealed during the investigation. Even though he hated her, he couldn't stop taking concubines, knowing that anyone he took would end up dead. The concubines who had died were simply manipulated by the Kenny family into going missing, and their families didn't dare confront Kenny. He had to continue searching for them." Lie Deep in Thought coldly continued, "But these truths were just information revealed during the investigation. Although it was called a challenge, it was still an assassination request. She never wanted her husband to die, but the guild could only receive payment if the target was killed, regardless of whether they deserved to die or not. The circumstances of the client were not something an assassin needed to worry about. If conscience interfered with the act of assassination, then it wouldn't be. It had to be murder, so when receiving payment for killing someone, did one really need to care about the reasons or methods? Ken never said she didn't want to kill her husband herself. She had exploited this assassination request, while we had to complete the mission because the undeniable truth was that there was an assassin involved in Arog's death. Even though the result was that she would have to endure a lifetime of torment for having stabbed her husband to death, the conscience that troubled her was something we as fake assassins didn't need. Lee responded with a cold philosophy: "If you want to maintain your humanity, strengthen your power. Strengthen your power to change from the roots." He turned and walked away, leaving behind a remark that as long as he was still operating under the gang leader, the assassination guild wouldn't change anything. The next morning in Safia's room, Lion donned the guild uniform, standing still for the special ceremony. Safia held the certificate, smiling brightly, congratulating her for passing the exam. "From this moment on, you're an official member of Jill Martin and a level 3 assassin." The system immediately notified Lai of his promotion, and he received the respect and expectations from other members. Safia continued, "From now on, as a level 5 assassin, you can take official missions from Martin if you meet the requirements. You can also apply for a promotion, but you don't plan to promote right away, do you?" Suddenly, Lai raised a finger. "Complete a single mission worth 30 gold or more. Lai calmly listed, or complete 10 level 5 missions, or be recommended by the branch leader, or a level 3 assassin. These are the conditions for promotion." Safia didn't dare hide it. "That's right." Lai pressed, "How much is the payment for this out mission?" Seeing Pala about to speak up, to stop her, Safia gritted her teeth and cut in. "What are you barking about?" Lee persisted. "How much is it?" Bart cornered. Safia had to admit a deposit of 10 gold after completion. Bala and Jian were shocked. Lion added, "You received 10 gold from Kenny on the condition of hiding the Arab incident." Jian shouted, "No way!" Lai covered his mouth, smirking, "Even if it's just a test." Receiving missions, completing them, and getting extra money are all part of the first promotion condition. A single mission worth over 30 gold has already been completed, hasn't it? Sophia stammered, unable to speak. Seeing her opponent weak, Lai declared loudly, "Level 5 Assassin Lai, I request to be promoted to Level 4 Assassin." The room fell silent, waiting for a response. Sophia tried to calm herself and spoke firmly. "You're being a bit too arrogant." Lai just smiled in response. Sophia admitted, "I acknowledge your impressive performance, but aren't you underestimating us?" An organization always has its own rules and regulations. In the assassin world, only level 4 and above assassins are truly recognized. Everyone must accumulate experience, hone their skills, and be validated by their teammates, taking pride in reaching level 4 assassin status. You have underestimated all of them. Your promotion conditions may not be perfect, but they can be considered acceptable. However, this kind of behavior will only bring dissatisfaction from everyone. No, I will pretend I didn't hear anything because I will assume you're tired after your first mission. But Lai was adamant, "No, I will not withdraw my promotion request." Sophia threatened him, "If you want to live well here, you should know your place a bit." Seeing the tense atmosphere, Jian hurriedly intervened. "Branch Chief, although it may be a bit excessive as the supervising officer, can I say something? I think Lai is now qualified to participate in the level 4 promotion exam. It's not that he looks down on us, but more importantly, he hasn't demonstrated the most important thing in this exam." Sophia asked curiously, "The most important thing?" Jian analyzed, "That is pure physical strength. It's not about planning or calculation, but the assassination skills that utilize an assassin's physical abilities." Bala and Lip thought to themselves, yet they still succeeded in the assassination. Just with unique strategies, Jian continued, "The level 4 promotion exam is impossible without physical capability. Taking this opportunity, we will also find out how strong Lai really is. Or we could teach Lai a bloody lesson." Everyone nodded in agreement. Sophia finally consented. "All right, I allow the level 4 promotion exam. It's something even well-prepared assassins must take risks for. Are you mentally prepared?" Lee confidently shook her hand. "Sure," Sophia concluded, that night at the place of Ze. That night, John privately met with the three of them, scolding this name. "You're really an expert at making people lose their minds. You're too hasty. Poland is just trying to speak up for you, that's all. There must be a reason for you to act like that." Sophia curiously asked, "But you must have a plan, right?" Lai was sipping milk while replying, "The level 4 exam won't happen for at least a month or two. Jiang suggested additional training for you, but Lai politely declined, saying, I'd like to pass on that because I plan to take a little break until then." Jiang was surprised, asking, "A break?" Lai explained, "For now, I plan to leave G. If I become a full member, I can leave the branch area too." "Right, I plan to go back before the exam. I just need to stop by the branch to confirm the exam details." "Is that so?" Jiang realized. "So that's your plan for leaving this time." Li just smiled knowingly as the farewell party was lively. Jiang reminded everyone to drink freely but forbade anyone from forcing Lai to drink. Outside, the night was quiet, contrasting with the warm atmosphere inside. Lai felt a bit sad thinking about leaving this place soon. Level 4 assassins wouldn't have time to rest, so he had to make the most of this moment. That night, he headed straight to the city gate. He climbed onto a rock to observe his surroundings and contemplated the dark land, that deadly area. From afar, a group of horses from the Rose family was galloping, and when Knu, the commander, suddenly ordered them to slow down, they cautiously moved step by step in the darkness. Suddenly, Knu exclaimed in surprise upon seeing a figure blocking the way. It was Lai. Because it was dark, Knu shouted, "Who are you?" Lai pretended to have twisted his ankle and sat down on the ground to bandage it. Not in a hurry to answer, after a moment he turned back with an innocent look. Knu approached, astonished to see it was just a child. Lai played the part of the injured, saying, "My ankle is twisted. Can you take me to the village ahead? I can't walk normally, and if it's dark, I might die in a place like this." "So I sat here hoping someone would pass by." Knu suspicious retorted, "You want to die, huh?" "Blocking a noble's carriage. If we have an urgent matter, we could be killed without a second thought." Lai smirked under his hood and cleverly responded, "The sound of hooves is steady like this. It seems you folks aren't in a hurry at all. If it were an urgent public matter, you would have taken the main road, not this one." Knu was left speechless. Lai clasped his hands, crying out, "Please just consider it saving a poor child like me just this once." Knu felt sympathy, but immediately tensed upon hearing a noise from the carriage. An authoritative voice rang out, "Can we take that child up into the carriage?" Knu quickly protested, "Absolutely not. If the person in the carriage changes their mind, can we put him on a horse instead?" Unable to disobey the order, Knu reluctantly allowed Lai to ride along with him. Lai took the chance to tease the captain. "You look pretty good up there." Knu asked for his name, and he replied, "I'm Lai. I come from Benton thanks to a kind young lady I survived." Knu reminded him, "You should be grateful for your luck in meeting her." Lion smiled brightly but secretly calculated. What a pity that wasn't luck. It was a plan by the Rose bloodline, the ones using the Rose emblem. Josh was accompanying her while checking the route to prevent any dangers before setting off. He learned that the Rose family was also traveling the same road, even though they had lived peacefully in the distant Petroy. But it was said that the head of the family had died suddenly, and she had to go into exile as a minor noble from the border. So the escorts weren't real knights, but former soldiers of the Josh Rose family on the road to exile. There's a story that the person was knighted during that time. While lost in thought, Lai accidentally overheard Chaku complaining, "Damn it, what is this young lady suffering through?" Haro, standing beside him, nodded in agreement. Those complaints acted as a key unlocking Lai's thoughts about the sudden downfall of the Rose family. Suddenly, Chaku mentioned the Min family with a tone full of resentment, so that's why everything happened so suddenly. It's all because of the Min family. Lion had also investigated this matter, but only murmured to himself that what he found out ended here. The death of the head of the family and Sentinels in exile. So how is the Min family involved? It seemed Knu read his thoughts and turned to ask his subordinate, "Is that really the Min family's doing?" Chaku, be honest, but I heard that the cunning Min clan assassinated the clan leader to cover up evidence of their collusion. Lion couldn't believe his ears as he shouted in his mind that night was a full moon, the gentle silver light guiding them more easily through the dense forest after a long tiring day. The group decided to set up camp to rest, quickly dismounting to find a spot, while others took the opportunity to cook a pot of hot soup to fill their stomachs. Lion also took this chance to nap for a bit, and a few minutes later he opened his eyes quickly, piecing together all the information he had gathered after encountering them. The decline of the Rose family was actually the result of a fierce dispute between the Jackmin family and the Phantom family. The Min family belonged to the Darren kingdom, while the Phantom family was from the Broy kingdom. These two kingdoms were sworn enemies. The tragedy began when the heir of the Rose family became a knight of the Min family. He died due to a monster attack while on patrol in the Darklands. To honor and compensate, the Min family promised substantial aid to the Rose family. This caused dissatisfaction for the Anani family, another noble family that had always competed with the Roses. Seeing their rival rising thanks to the support of Jackmin, the Anani family secretly contacted the Phantom family. Using the conflict between the two major families as a cover, they hired someone to assassinate the head of the Rose family. However, the Rose family was quietly assisting the Min family in this dispute to hide the evidence and turn the tide. The opposing faction fabricated and spread the rumor that the Min family had assassinated the head of the Rose family to silence them. After discovering the truth that their relative's death was instigated by the Anani family, they attempted to resist. But against the massive power of the Phantom family, who had solidified their position due to the weakening of Jackmin, all efforts became futile. The Rose family lost their head and quickly declined, forced to flee to the Duke's residence. The only one who knew all the ins and outs of the situation was Miss Rose. When she left, only Knu, who had just been knighted, and a few loyal attendants that he hastily gathered remained. This path of exile would surely be fraught with thorns. While Lion was lost in thought, Rose inside the carriage had fallen into a deep sleep from exhaustion. To ensure safety, Knu sent someone to keep watch. Strictly outside their master's tent, he sat by the fire, continuously discussing the political situation with everyone, especially the greedy gaze that the Anani family's second son directed at Miss Rose. The issue wasn't with the Min family, but with Phantom and the Anani family. In fact, this exile could only proceed smoothly because the Min family had obtained a transit permit from the Darren kingdom. Leon was eating soup while listening intently. While Knu was lost in thought, the Min family had drained their remaining resources to support them. Just as he finished speaking, Chaku excitedly invited Knu to drink, raising a toast for the Min family, and he didn't forget to scoop more soup for Leon. "Do you want me to scoop you another bowl?" The boy politely replied, "Yes, please." Chaku laughed heartily. "It must be a bit boring, huh, since this has nothing to do with you?" Lion cheerfully responded, hiding his inner calculations. "Not at all, I'm having fun." However, internally he was in turmoil. They indeed had deep connections with the Min family. Noticing that everyone was not on guard against him, Lion decided to probe further. "But would it be okay? You brought a kid like me along during the exile, and now I'm hearing all this." Before he could finish his sentence, Chaku interjected teasingly after blocking the path. "Need help, huh?" Chaku was being sarcastic. Lion turned away, forcing a smile. Gon thought he was scared of Knu and quickly reassured him. "It's okay. Captain Knu seems much more relaxed after letting it all out." Chaku agreed, "Yeah." But the one suffering the most was Miss Centaurus. Lion silently acknowledged this. The real issue lay with Rose Knu and the other knights, who were still too inexperienced to realize the seriousness of the situation. This event was like the dangers lurking right before their eyes. The Anani family had allied with the Phantom family. They would never be satisfied with just the death of the Rose family head, especially the second son of the Anani family. He was not even 20 and had already sent 3 assassination requests to the guild. Indeed, what a scoundrel. I refused because there was no profit in doing so. But he was the kind of cruel person who preyed on the weak and the poor. Yet he protected himself so thoroughly that assassinating him was extremely difficult. If someone like that targeted Serpent Joe, this was not the time to comfortably set up camp and rest. Just then, Lion's keen senses detected a stalker hiding nearby. Knowing he had been discovered, that person immediately fled for their life. Leon secretly followed the figure, telling himself, "So they've been tailing us, huh? Should we deal with them now?" No, considering their numbers en route, the news has definitely been sent out. The most effective move right now was to set a trap to slow down the pursuit. Thinking quickly, Lion pretended to go to the bathroom to scout and act. When he returned, he was covered in dirt. Chaku saw this and immediately asked, "Kid, why are you all dirty?" He pretended to be flustered, scratching his head, and replied, "I fell while going to the bathroom." Gon worriedly ordered, "If you hurt your leg, you should ask for help. You should rest here." In reality, Lion had already set the trap. He thought to himself, "I've set enough traps along the way to hinder the pursuers, and I've gathered the necessary information. Our connection with them only lasts until the next town, so consider it a payment of 8 shu." Early the next morning, as the sun rose high, the group hurriedly packed their belongings. It was time for Lai to part ways. Before leaving, he didn't forget to express his gratitude for the ride and asked about his plans. The destination for the kid was the Horned Village. What would a kid like him do in a village near the Dark Region? Lai made up a reasonable excuse, saying he was a merchant looking to buy monster materials in Horned Village, then sell them in Penton. Father waved goodbye, saying he had to leave from here. "I guess this is where we say goodbye, huh?" After that, the guy handed Lai a vial of medicine, catching him by surprise. "And this is for you since you haven't fully recovered yet, so take this medicine. The lady instructed me to give it to you." Lai took the vial and asked, "What about the lady?" But Rose was sitting inside the carriage, looking out through the window without saying a word. Knu answered for her, thanking her for giving them a moment of peace. He felt truly grateful, even though he found Knu's cryptic words puzzling. Lion still bowed his head, saying, "I'm off then," when Knu suddenly warned him seriously, "From now on, we'll be living on the continent. So if you ever need help, even if I do, don't look for me," Gon said, knowing Knu's sharp tongue, laughing loudly. The captain appeared to be losing, but that was just on the surface. "He's a good guy." Chaku chimed in, agreeing that even if he didn't ask, he would still find a way to help you. "It's just that he speaks too bluntly." He hit the nail on the head, and Knu, feeling irritated, shouted, "Aren't you leaving already?" Lai stood watching this convoy gradually disappear. He looked at the vial of medicine in his hand and sighed, a feeling of awkwardness rising in his heart. Out of curiosity, he opened the cap and drank it all in one go, accidentally spilling a few drops on the ground. Immediately after, his attention was drawn. He was captivated by the sound of galloping hooves coming from the opposite direction. Turning his head, Lai saw a group of people urging their horses to run for their lives, rushing towards him. In an instant, he recognized the opponents and pretended to look worried, stepping aside. But inside, he was coldly analyzing. There were 6 people in the pursuing team, 2 of whom were just ordinary mercenaries, 2 junior swordsmen, and 1 wizard. This would definitely be troublesome. The last one was a hooded figure. But he was definitely Enroll, the second son of the Anani Guruta clan. Upon arriving, Guruta also removed the cloth covering his face, revealing a crazed, aggressive expression. He urged his horse past Lai without even glancing at a kid by the roadside. After he passed, Lai glanced at their retreating figures, his gaze turning sharp. The skills of the pursuers were higher than expected. It seemed the plan to trap them had failed a bit too much for just 8 Keishu. "And I even drank the whole vial of medicine." Lai looked at the empty vial in his hand, startled, exclaiming, "Huh!" He realized its true value. Such high-grade medicine was worth over 20 silver coins per vial. Suddenly, Lai burst out laughing, feeling like he had just consumed something far too extravagant. He thought about Rose, mumbling, "Giving this to a kid who just helped for a night. I wonder what kind of person the lady is." To live while hiding and still think of others, Rose's kindness made it impossible for him to overlook. The Rose family had no escape. They would kidnap Center and deal with the rest a bit too much for 8 Taishu. But if you add in the vial of medicine, consider it a prepayment, and that's somewhat acceptable. Remembering the magic formation he had set up, Lai calculated that if he tried to chase after the horses, it could cause more casualties. So perhaps he would ask for your support in this part. This is your first mission. The evil decision made Lion summoned his monster to join the fight. The Rose Clan's group was still on their journey when the sound of galloping hooves echoed from behind. Knu turned around, his expression changing. Sensing danger was near, he immediately ordered, "We need to speed up." Haro looked confused, asking, "Huh?" Kenyu quickly reported back into the carriage. "Miss, we will speed up a bit. Please bear with the shaking of the carriage." A soldier named Eric questioned, "Commander, why the sudden change?" Knu shouted loudly, his voice echoing through the forest. "There are pursuers! Someone with magic is following us." He pointed ahead decisively, commanding, "The border is just ahead. Hurry up, Father Gon, if they catch up. You two take the lady straight to the border. Once we reach the border, then it's safe. Anani won't be able to do anything. They won't dare touch the lady if it risks conflict with Darren's guards. Go, I'll buy us some time." With that, Knu turned his horse back towards the enemy, and Chaku and Gon shouted, "Commander!" Gon shouted back, "I'll see you down below." A deep sigh escaped the engineer's lips, mocking himself in his heart. He wasn't just any engineer. He was a lucky one granted the title by chance. But he was the engineer of the Rose family, and the Anani cavalry charged forward like a storm. Seeing someone blocking the way, Guruta looked tense but didn't slow down. Knu drew his sword and shouted boldly, "Stop right there. Who dares to chase after the Rose family's carriage? Back off now, or I won't hold back." Guruta laughed mockingly. "Hold back, huh?" The guy jumped off his horse, looking down on Knu. "You think being called a knight makes you impressive?" After saying that, Guruta removed his hood, causing Knu to gasp in horror. Guruta Anani, one of his subordinates, Teodo, anxiously reminded his master of his identity. Guruta brushed it off coldly. "Anyway, aside from the news, they all have to die, right? You all capture that woman before she reaches the border." Teodo acknowledged the order, leading the troops past Knu as if he were invisible. Kanu, panicking, raised his sword to block. What are you planning? But he was completely powerless watching them pass. Among them was a mage, a second tier or higher one. Before Kanu could recover, he was severely injured and coughed up blood on the spot. Guruta laughed joyfully. Calm down now. A knight from Feta will handle your opponent. Either way, you're going to die here. From among the soldiers, a familiar figure stepped forward. Kanu's eyes widened. Why is the former commander of the Rose family knights here? Guruta answered for him. Why? For the money, of course. The Joe family has disappeared. Do I have to wait to starve? It's been a long time since I've had such entertainment. The knight threw his helmet down and charged at Kanu, swinging his sword mercilessly. Kanu, while blocking the blows, painfully asked, Don't you have any knightly spirit left? The knight replied nonchalantly, Times have changed. Ken Venture no longer resembles a true knight. After a while of fighting, the knight advised, Just give up. I've heard there's going to be a war. With your abilities, it's still not too late to switch sides. Kanu firmly refused. Stop talking nonsense. Knowing he couldn't persuade Guruta, he gritted his teeth and ordered, Get it done quickly. I'm sure the news has been captured. The knight sighed. I'm sorry. He raised his sword high, intending to finish Kanu, but at that moment he was unexpectedly ambushed from behind and fell to the ground. What the hell? Who did that? The knight growled, and immediately a monster appeared, grinning with a sinister smile. The knight fumed. How dare you not answer? The monster launched a second attack, accompanied by a terrifying magical explosion, along with the mage. Anani's group hurriedly raised their mana shields, but were still thrown back by the shockwave. I barely managed to raise the mana shield, but this guy is extremely powerful. The knight was hit by the magic and spat out blood from a distance, observing through his connection with the monster. Damn it! The Rose family's carriage ahead has been overturned, blood and bodies scattered everywhere. The horse that pulled the carriage is dead, and only Chaku and Gon are trying to hold on, despite being severely injured. Their opponent is too strong. Nathan Theodore's twin brother enjoyed playing cat and mouse, trying to resist because of the knight title. Theodore, insulted, chopping you up is such a hassle. Why don't you just disappear quietly? With our forces, we only need to get close to a basic swordsman level. You have no chance. From the rubble, a weak voice called out, Please stop. A girl stepped out, tightly gripping a dagger. Everyone has endured so much until now. 3 chickens rushed to block the lady if she stepped out. Rose Footler made a final offer. I will follow you. Please spare them. Otherwise I will die too. Your master surely doesn't want that to happen, right? She pressed the dagger to her throat, her gaze resolute. Theodore silently assessed, Is that woman? The last remaining blood of the Rose family saw Rose Theodoro's determination and hesitated. Sent in Rose, but he quickly changed his tone cunningly. It seems you are misunderstanding a few things. You haven't even reached Darren yet. So now you're neither a noble nor anything else. His words struck a nerve, making the lady tremble as she lowered her dagger. Seeing the opportunity, Theodore signaled, We have no reason to listen to you. Nathan immediately rushed forward, grabbing the lady's hair and yanking it back, laughing. Let me show you what happens when you go against a knight who can control mana. The lady screamed in despair, unable to resist anymore. Rose closed her eyes, waiting for death, when suddenly a figure lunged at her like lightning, delivering a thunderous kick that sent Nathan flying, causing him to cough up blood. Rose opened her eyes in shock, looking at the person who just saved her. Lai, who are you? Theodoro shouted angrily. Lai casually snatched the dagger from Nathan's hand, twirling it lightly, and said nonchalantly, I was going to use this to settle the debt for the medicine. With such a pathetic opponent, I still have plenty left. Let's consider the medicine and soup as the deposit. Commissioning an assassin Maon Leon. Rose was bewildered as Martin the assassin pulled down his mask, surprised. Why are Martin's people here? A hired assassin Maon Lion Rose looked bewildered as Martin the assassin from Leon pulled down his mask. He was startled, wondering why Martin's people were here. Why are you helping the crazy family? But Rose suddenly remembered something and thought to herself, if it's so easy, then you must be a direct descendant of the Anne family. She didn't hesitate to shout, 30 gold coins. Lai looked up with a smirk, clearly aware of the situation. But he shook his head, still not enough. 30 coins were only enough to deal with a knight standing in front of her, the second son of the Anani family, a former commander of the Knight clan, and a third-rate wizard. That was too little to handle everything. Thai cursed at the bastard, but Lai ignored him and turned to urge Rose, You better hurry up and speak. If the commission isn't finalized, I have no reason to stay. Rose bit her lip, struggling with her thoughts. If Lai left, everything would be over. She bowed her head, her voice trembling, yet determined. Everything you want, please. Lai stared at her, waiting for her to accept immediately. Lai's eyes flared with killing intent. Theodore still underestimated this bastard, even as an assassin daring to show his face. Lai raised his knife, his voice cold. They say assassins shouldn't reveal their identities, but that's just the words of cowardly people with small ambitions. A true assassin can swiftly strike with the help of magic. Lai threw the knife with unimaginable speed. It struck directly into the chest of Theodore, causing him to fall and scream in pain. Lee was confident, making no mistakes, so even if he revealed his face, he could still be assured. Rose was still in shock, glancing at him, silently setting her sights. This was her first official mission. As an assassin, the reward was all the wealth of the Rose family. She had to create a reputation worthy of it. Don't talk nonsense, Theodore tried to teach her. Do you think those who just started learning swordsmanship would easily fall? We will easily fall? Lai responded with a cryptic smile. We won't be long before we turn the tables. He took his sword and charged forward, striking into thin air. Because Lai had moved at breakneck speed, Theodore panicked, calling out to his brother, "How long are you going to lie there? The opponent is an assassin from the San family. Don't be careless." Theodore gritted his teeth, holding up his sword. "You've made the wrong choice, accepting the commission from the Rose family. With our perfect position switching technique, we will make you regret that decision." Lai smiled brightly. "Really?" He activated a series of domination skills, accelerating his body. Lai glided like a ghost, moving many times faster than usual. The two brothers, Theodore and Nathan, couldn't hit him no matter how hard they tried. Starting to panic, Theodore gritted his teeth. "Illusions or magic techniques? But I don't sense any magical flow." 4 Lees surrounded them, creating a circle to trap the two enemies until he found their weak point. He coldly declared, "Too late now." A smack to Theodore's back made him scream. He turned to scold Nathan. "Stop hitting randomly. We need to coordinate our counterattack at the right moment." Lee replied from thin air, "Too late because I've activated the skill to weaken the body, destroy, and disrupt your hearing." Theodore was horrified. "A cursed skill. You even have the abilities of a soul master." Not giving him a chance to think further, Lai unleashed a finishing blow. Blood sprayed into the air, enhancing Lai's magic. He whispered into their ears like a reaper, "Feel the pain of the souls wronged from your family." Rose D. The battle ended as the sun set. The Rose family's convoy lay in ruins, leaving only 2 horses to return in tatters. Yet their eyes still sparkled with joy at seeing everyone safe. "Misses everyone hurt?" Rose sobbed. "No, it's really okay." Kay Nu sighed in relief when she saw him still alive. Nu turned to ask Gon and Chaku, "Is Dad okay too?" But Gon was still in shock, asking back, "Could it really be you who defeated the pursuers?" Nu glared at him. "Do I look that miserable?" Gon hurriedly waved his hand. "No, I mean..." Nu recounted the truth. "I received unexpected help from a wizard who killed the traitor and captured that guru too." All eyes turned to Lion with suspicion and astonishment. Lion didn't explain much. He summoned the demon that appeared right before everyone, a magic circle forming, and Guruta Anani was thrown out, screaming in utter panic, having witnessed the horrifying display just now. Nu turned to ask, still in shock, "You are Lai, right? Why are you..." Rose quickly replied, her tone mixed with admiration. "That kid claims to be an assassin of the demon clan." But Nu couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment, and despite being surprised when piecing everything together, he gradually believed in the identity of this young assassin, looking at the wizard who had been humiliated. He thought to himself, serves him right. Hearing the name Martin Guruta made him feel a bit scared. Martin, however, survival instincts kicked in. The guy tried to bargain for his life. "If you spare me, I'll pay double the amount they promised. It seems your Sentinel House has washed away the cunning tricks, but the principle of Vicky assassination is to only accept gold from clients, not humans, right?" However, the guy's words only made Lai more annoyed. He coldly cast a spell and said a brief sentence, "Too noisy." Immediately, Guruta's body was torn in half, a scream of pain, echoed, and then faded in the rain of blood. After finishing the target, Lai sighed in relief, his tone full of disdain. "Just pay me. How dare you treat me like a mediocre assassin?" Turning to Joe, he began calculating the payment. "Miss, do you remember what Joe promised as a reward? I will never forgive anyone who goes back on their word. You must understand what the path of a killer is like by now, right?" Rose broke out in a cold sweat and quickly replied, "Of course." Surprisingly, his tone softened. "I won't ask for it right now. I understand the situation with the Rose family." Seeing him hesitate made Rose even more worried. But that anxiety quickly faded when Lion continued, "If you can officially send a payment request of 30 gold to Martin, I would be very grateful. The rest will just be a verbal agreement between us." Even though she didn't fully understand Lion's intentions, Rose nodded in agreement. Once the deal was settled, Lion began to guide her through the next steps. "Now steady your mind and continue your journey. No one will be chasing you anymore. This corpse, Matea, will be taken care of after you leave. If the border guards ask, just say you were attacked by robbers and that should be fine." His thorough advice left Gon and Chaku feeling puzzled, but they still smiled and nodded in response. Nu silently admired his professionalism. He handled everything so neatly. Seeing Lion turn to leave, Canoe quickly called out regretfully, "Leon?" Lion turned back, smiled, and then cast a spell. He slowly floated into the air, and with a gentle snap of his fingers, his figure vanished into thin air. Gon couldn't believe his eyes and exclaimed, "He disappeared!" Once he was out of sight, Canoe turned to express his doubts to Joe, a shadow assassin. That might not be the whole truth. His words were filled with implications, leaving her confused. Canoe recalled the monster that devoured hearts filled with questions. Lion claimed to be an assassin, but the creature he summoned was not ordinary. The image of the battle flashed vividly in his mind, from the monster using magic to create explosions to how Lion summoned it. All of it exceeded the usual rules of magic. He muttered, "They can even talk, albeit briefly." He couldn't forget that creature's smug smile. After defeating the enemy, recalling the scene where the soldiers and the mage were taken down in an instant, Canoe solemnly stated, "Moreover, he took down both the soldiers and the mage." Hearing this, Rose's face turned pale as Canoe continued to speculate. He connected it to an ancient legend and asserted to everyone, the legendary mage Veda, perhaps he is that mage's disciple. Rose couldn't hide her panic and shouted, Veda, you mean he's also a soul master, like Veda? Canoe seriously analyzed an Andes who just faced off and took down a mage in 3 rounds, along with a novice swordsman while also casting spells. Such beings are not rare in the Andes. But this is clearly a creature of a different level. Then Gon turned and whispered half-jokingly, Lion is Veda's disciple, you know. In contrast to that playful tone, Chaku appeared tense. If that's true, the consequences will be extremely serious. Since it couldn't be verified, Rose ordered everyone to keep the secret. Everyone must keep today's events absolutely confidential. I don't mean the matter of our guru being killed. The more his death spreads, the better. Knu still didn't fully grasp the meaning and hesitantly asked, So, what do you mean, miss? Rose quickly interrupted with a firm tone. You saving us is just a sentimental assassin fulfilling a mission for the price of a bowl of soup and a vial of medicine. If he truly is the heir to the legacy of the legendary mage Veda, the information we must conceal is about Lion. Her command made everyone shiver. Knu silently noted the change in his master. She was completely different from the young lady who left the city. Her eyes no longer held the despair of someone who had lost everything. After a moment, Rose kindly asked, Knu, can you still move? He immediately replied, Yes, I can. Rose entrusted him with an important mission, knowing it would be difficult. You need to return to Penton and officially set the assassination mission for Matea. As Lord Long said, just hire someone to kill Ruruda. Concerned for her safety, Knu intended to object, but if I leave now, then... But Rose quickly reassured him, I trust Lord Lion that we won't be ambushed anymore. Preparing now would be pointless, so let's do our best with what we can. We will definitely stand firm in the Daron Kingdom for the revival of the Rose family. Rose's resolute declaration plunged Gon and Chaku into deep thought, while Knu also had to ponder a lot. Meanwhile, in a desolate mountain range as night fell, Lion was walking when he stumbled upon a skull rolling on the ground. He felt no fear but merely sighed softly. Standing atop the mountain, he gazed ahead, calculating for the next leg of his journey through the village of Da. It took half a day, right? Finally, we've arrived at the starting point of the dark 3-layered 12. A smile full of implications appeared on his face. It took half a day, didn't it? Finally, they arrived at the starting point of the dark 3-level zone. A knowing smile crept back onto his face.